Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us. I'm Jason Bowman, and I'm joined by Mike Pinozzo of Billiards Digest. And tonight, we are here to celebrate our good friend, the one and only Black Widow. Of course, it was 1 week ago today when word spread across the globe that our friend and billiard icon, Jeanette Lee, had been diagnosed with stage 4 ovarian cancer. As scary and upsetting as that news was, the outpouring of support that soon followed was truly remarkable. Almost immediately, fans and friends began flooding social media with pictures of themselves with Jeanette, and the Jeanette Lee Legacy Fund, which was established to help Jeanette with some of her medical expenses and to secure the future education of her children, saw a huge surge of donations that rolled in. Mike, when I heard the news of Jeanette's diagnosis, I don't know how you felt, but I kind of felt paralyzed, almost helpless, as is often the case in kind of these situations. But as I took note of all this outpouring of support, it was clear there were thousands of people out there who desperately wanted to offer some measure of comfort, some measure of support for Jeanette in her time of need. And that's really what led us here tonight, I think, to raise Jeanette's spirits and to encourage folks, of course, to donate to the Black Widow Legacy Fund. I think do we have the Jeanette Lee, the GoFundMe page?
It should grow. It's not surprising that it leaped so quickly right out of the gate because Jeanette has touched so many people's lives. And so people, outside of our industry, who saw her at trade shows or on TV, or people that she's just touched, wanted to do something immediately. And that says a lot about her character and about how she's inspired other people over the years, through all the other physical challenges that she's fought. So yeah, we want everyone to get online and go to that GoFundMe page, the Jeanette Lee Legacy Fund. If you're watching, you've already donated.
Yeah, so tonight, Mike and I will be joined by several of the biggest names in pool to, like Mike said, to not only raise Jeanette's spirits, but to continue to encourage, again, the support for the Legacy Fund. Mike, you and I both spent some time talking with Jeanette last week, and I felt like the two things that I took away from her communication with us, and that I want everybody to kind of understand, is number one, how grateful she really is for the outpouring of support. I know she said she had several thousands of emails and calls and texts, and she just couldn't get back to all of them. But also, even in her time of need, she believes that what she's going through is another opportunity to help inspire others, which I know both you and I really found amazing.
Yeah, it's astonishing to be in the position she's in and to think first about her daughters and not about herself, and then to think, how can I use this, to help other people, to inspire other people. She mentioned it. She's not done here yet. She's got some work to do, and she mentioned that she thought that the challenges she's had to this point kind of prepared her for an even bigger challenge, and that's it's an astonishing philosophy and an astonishing way to look at it when you've just been hit with that kind of news.
Absolutely. And so with all of that said, we wanted you to be able to hear from Jeanette herself about how she's doing, where her mind's at. And so she has prepared a short video for us tonight, and we're going to go ahead and play that so you can hear what the Jeanette Lee has to say for herself.
Hey everyone, this is Jeanette Lee. As some of you may already know, but I have recently been diagnosed with stage 4 ovarian cancer, and it's been a lot. And I have heard from so many of you. It's such a warm feeling to know that even though I know I've got some incredible fans out there, I've never felt warm, just being wrapped in the warmth of your love so much as these recent times when I've just gone through my second round of chemo. I'm still in the middle of it, and I've lost my hair, as you can see. But I'm really planning on fighting this all the way and coming out on the other hand, on the other side, victorious. And I know that my children give me so much reason to fight through all of this. And it is scary, but I am not alone. I don't feel alone because I hear you, and I've been getting your emails and your calls and your texts and reading all your messages on all the different social media ways that you guys can get a hold of me. And I just wanted to thank you and let you know that for those of you that are out there fighting a similar fight, that you're not alone and we can get through this together. And I love you. And I'll try to keep you posted as much as I can because I don't want to go through this alone. I plan to bring you along for the ride, supporting each other all the way, right? Bye. Mwah.
That's a powerful message from Jeanette. Obviously, the visual, her having lost her hair and everything she's going through. But as you can see, Jeanette is in good spirits. She's showing the kind of resolve that we've come to expect from the Black Widow. And again, remarkably, you hear the desire still really to help others, even during, the biggest battle of her life, which I think is truly amazing. So as we move into the show tonight, I want to reiterate that tonight is a night about celebration, celebrating Jeanette, her amazing career, reminiscing from some of her early years. We've got a number of guests. And again, to remind you, this is all being done to encourage our viewers to support the Jeanette Lee Legacy Fund and really to show our friend Jeanette, some love and that we're thinking about her. And I know at some point she'll be tuning in. And so, again, we really wanted to be able to lift her spirit. So, Mike, before we jump into our first guest, I wanted to just kind of tell, our history with Jeanette. And for me, I started working with Jeanette back in 2009. We signed her. I negotiated her sponsorship agreement with APA. And, it's interesting. I told her at the time, I said, actually, you and I go back further. And I actually met Jeanette for the first time in Kansas City in 2000. Mike, you probably remember the trade show back in Kansas City that year. But I had only been at APA a matter of weeks. And I was fresh out of college. I was 22 years old. I didn't know anything about pool. I certainly didn't know anything about professional pool. And, there was kind of a buzz at a certain point in the trade show. And a guy that I was working with in the booth said, hey, you need to go around the corner and get your picture taken with the Black Widow. And I'm going to show everybody a little bit of my billiard ignorance here. But I told him, I said, I don't know who that is. I don't know who the Black Widow is. And he said, oh, she looks like a model and she's one of the best pool players in the world and everybody knows who she is. And so I had to go see what it was all about, right? Even though I hadn't known who she was. And so I round the corner. And as soon as I round that corner at the trade show, there's no denying who Jeanette Lee is. When you see her enter a room or you enter a room that she's in, she immediately draws your attention. That's the kind of look and the kind of aura that she really has about her. So I immediately notice her. Obviously, beautiful woman in the middle, all these people standing in line. And I figure, you know what? I'm going to get a picture with her. And, I'll go back and tell my buddies who I met her and all these good things. So I stand in this long line and it's finally my turn. And I start to get a little anxious, a little nervous because I'm not really sure the protocol of, I don't really know her. I certainly don't know her personally. Do I, she's a beautiful woman. Do I put my arm around her? Do I stand next to her? So I just kind of, she says hello and I just kind of stand next to her awkwardly. And in Jeanette fashion, she kind of looks at me with a kind of a half pout and she said, well, at least, put your arm around me like you like me. And we kind of laughed and she immediately put me at ease, which she's great at. I think, Steve, you've got a photo of that actual first meeting Jeanette and I looking like absolute kids. Hopefully you guys could see that. But that was Mike, that was my first introduction to Jeanette. And years later, I think it was some point when we were on the Black Widow tour, and we were probably sitting down to have a drink, and we were joking around. And I said, I told her the story of how we first met. And I said, I'll be honest, I didn't know who you were at the time. And she just laughed it off, and she said, that's all right, Jason. I didn't know who you were back then either. And it's sure, that's just Jeanette for you. That's that Brooklyn, New York, quick wit style. And we just had a good laugh about it. But, that's kind of where my personal history starts. But Mike, I know for you, you've been in the billiard industry forever, and you were on the scene in the early 90s when Jeanette kind of broke through. So if you could set the stage for the conversation tonight, when Jeanette's career starts to take off in New York, and as a journalist at the time, how she first kind of comes to your attention, and what the overall feeling was about her at that time.
Well, the overall feeling, she hit the women's tour like a firestorm. She was taking no prisoners from day one, and she had already started to develop her own style. She was comfortable with who she was. She was going to be brash. She was going to dress with an edge, and she had a strut. She had ego. She talked bold, and it caught a lot of the women off guard. The women were in their heyday with the classic tour, and they were a little protective of their brand, which they had every right to be. They wanted things to look and feel a certain way. And they didn't know whether Jeanette was good or bad for what they were trying to accomplish. And so there was some sniping. There was some, there were people who were not happy with her at the beginning and didn't think she was good for the tour. But she didn't care about it at all. She said, I plan on being number one, and if you're in my way, you're going to get stepped on. And that was her attitude. And she said, I remember saying, I'll never stop being me. And if people can't handle that, that's their problem. Because, and one thing you cannot take away from Jeanette was, even in those days, she loved the game more than anything. The game is what gave her reason in life. It gave her purpose. And she was a pool junkie. She just developed something to go along with that would make her more marketable. And so, the fact that she could come in and within 2 years move to number one, that showed that it wasn't just, a pretty face and a lot of talk. She backed it up on the table. And that's it's really an astonishing thing.
And I believe by June of 1994, she made the first cover photo for Billiards Digest, one of, I think you said a record 9 that she was on. 10. Okay. 10. So Jeanette Lee, the very first cover, she finally in June of 94 makes a cover, and she's off and running. So that kind of sets the stage. And Mike, I think we're almost set with our first guest, somebody who has roots with Jeanette back in her days in New York. Obviously, a lot of people, if you've played pool in New York, of the Amsterdam Billiard Club. So Mike, if you would go ahead and introduce our first guest, and hopefully he'll be hopping in here right as you are introducing him.
Yeah, sure. Well, you may as well start at the beginning. And the beginning of the Jeanette Lee story kind of starts at Amsterdam Billiards. Amsterdam was a new room in 1990 on the Upper West Side of New York on Amsterdam Avenue. It was opened by Greg Hunt, his brother Ethan, and their partner, comedian David Brenner. And it was a huge success from the start. And Jeanette Lee was actually a waitress at Amsterdam when it first opened. Showed a lot of interest in pool, and I'm sure bugged Greg to pay for some lessons for her or get her started. And over her career, she's always had an attachment to Amsterdam Billiards. Greg is a great guy in this business for a long time. So yes, Greg's ready to talk about Jeanette. I know he's got a lot of stories about her, and he's certainly been a big part of her life, and she's been a big part of Amsterdam's life.
Be our first technical hiccup of the evening as we try to move our guests from our virtual green room into our live stream. There's Greg.
Greg Hunt.
Mr. Hunt.
Hi.
How are you?
Good. The sound is not that good though. You guys there's a lot of fuzziness.
I always sound that way.
We hear you great. We hear you fantastic.
Yeah, that's great. And you look great. So
you guys sound like Mickey and Minnie Mouse, but you guys can hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
It's all fine. So let's go back to the beginning. You're opening Amsterdam in 1990, and Jeanette puts in a job application.
Well, yeah, it wasn't quite like that, we opened up in March of 1990, and Jeanette was at that point one of the top women amateurs, at least in the New York area. And we had heard about her, and she was playing at a real serious players' room called Chelsea Billiards, and I'd seen her there, and of course, she's very striking looking. I mean, she still is, but back then she was 19, and she's always been gorgeous, but she definitely caught my eye and every other guy's eye. And I think one of my managers knew her, and we convinced her to come up to Amsterdam Billiards to play. And she ended up coming up, and then she became a regular, and then ended up working for us as our house pro. We actually paid for some of her first official pool lessons with a guy who's like 150 years old by the name of Abe Rosen. And he had been around since like literally the 1930s, I think. And was a great three cushion player. And he gave Jeanette a bunch of lessons. And in one of the worst sports predictions in the history of sports, my brother and I asked him, so, hey, what do you think? And he said, she's not going to go anywhere. So that will go down in the wide world of sports as one of the worst predictions ever in sports.
Yeah.
But anyway, no, I mean, Jeanette was fantastic. She's just so striking looking. She was a great player. She was very intense. And I got to know her. And one of the things that people don't know about Jeanette is she actually went to Bronx High School of Science, which is academically one of the best schools in New York City. People know that she's beautiful, that she's a very great sportswoman, competitive and so forth. But she's smart too. I mean, she's the whole package, and that's kind of interesting and a little known fact about Jeanette.
You hosted a number of WPBA events over the years, when she was in New York and she was, like a house pro and connected with you guys. What was it like when there was a tournament at your place and she was in there?
I mean, she was fantastic. She also played in a men's straight pool tournament, which I'll tell you about in a little bit. But, she was, she and Lori John and Ava, I'm sorry if I'm hurting someone else's feelings, but they were the marquee names whenever we had a WPBA event, and everyone obviously gathered, watched those matches. But Jeanette at that point had, she would kind of sort of transcended the sport of pool. She was one of the few pool players really that was known outside of pool. The other one maybe being Steve Miserak because of the Miller Lite commercials. I'm not even sure how much Willie Mosconi was known outside of the world of pool. But anyway, so Jeanette, there was certainly a buzz and an excitement whenever Jeanette came to our club playing in one of the tournaments. But the one tournament that I remember in particular was that we held a men's straight pool championship, and it was pretty serious money. I think it was it wasn't huge, but it was like a $10,000 first prize, maybe about a $50,000 prize fund, which wasn't bad for a single billiard club. And she played in it. I think she was the only woman to show up and be willing to match up against the greatest male pool players of our time. And she actually won. I think she finished in the top 8 or 12. I don't remember, but she won a match against Dallas West, who in my mind is one of the greatest.
Greg freeze up on us.
But it was amazingly impressive, and I'll never forget that. And I don't think Dallas was too happy about it, but for Jeanette, who at the time was maybe in her mid-20s, to beat Dallas West in a game of straight pool, and it was a run to 150. This is not luck was not you couldn't win based on luck in a run to 150 in straight pool. So that was pretty impressive.
Yeah.
And then she, part of her transcending the world of the pool was she was invited to the Women's Sports Foundation. I don't know if you remember that, Mike, but
Yep.
Women's Sports Foundation had an annual dinner at the Waldorf Astoria in New York, very fancy hotel. And she invited me there one of the years that she went. And I went there, and we sat at a table where, we're next to Billie Jean King and I forget who else, but it was pretty impressive. And then after dinner, we got up, and Jeanette introduced me to Martina Navratilova. I forget the Lisa Leslie, for the WNBA star from LA. So I mentioned this not just to drop names, but just to the fact that Jeanette at her peak she was famous, and she really was, and well known outside of the world of pool, and that's very, very rare. And she was at this sports event, and people were going up to her and wanting her autograph. I mean, she was standing next to Martina Navratilova and Billie Jean King, and people were, coming up to her. So it was pretty impressive. And even for those of us who knew her, and it was still, it was still impressive.
Sure.
She was also very generous with her time. We had a series of charity events with Paul Sorvino and my partner David Brenner and Jerry Orbach, as you know, Mike. I don't know, you met him, I'm sure, back in the day. But the one event, and Jeanette would always come when asked, and she was very in 2001. In fact, it's behind me. I don't know if you can see the poster. I put it up here, but Jeanette and David Brenner, we hosted it, but they were the star attractions, and we raised a lot of money there were 2 local firehouses. At that point, we had 2 locations in New York, and between the 2 locations, 17 firemen had been killed on 9/11. So you can imagine how tragic that was. But she, if memory serves, she wasn't even living in New York anymore. So she, magnanimous and generous with her time, a real celebrity who transcended the world of sports, and still does. In fact, I was talking to someone today, a woman, a friend of my wife's, who has nothing to do with pool, and I mentioned I was going to be doing a Zoom call for Jeanette Lee, and she was, oh yeah, she knew, Jeanette Lee, the Black Widow, and she never picked up a pool cue in her life. So to this day, Jeanette still, transcends the sport, even though she hasn't, played competitively in a while.
So. Yeah, she sure does. Yeah.
So, I mean, other things also, but those are the highlights that came to mind. And I do want to mention this. I'm not mentioning this to be crass, but to maybe get other people to start kicking in some money. But I do wanted to mention that we're going to be contributing $2,500 to the GoFundMe site for Jeanette, because awesome. We know that, she's going through a tough time right now, and her family, obviously it's not just.
That's great. It's a
bravo
thing for you to do. Yeah, I mean, I know, you guys, your room has been closed for almost a year, so it hasn't been easy on you these days. But that's a wonderful gesture, and I'm sure much appreciated by Jeanette and her family. We appreciate your being with us.
Hey, Greg, before you leave us, Greg, I was going to say, Greg, before you leave, I know at some point Jeanette is gonna sit down and watch this. I don't know if she's watching live, but if there was just one thing that you could speak directly to Jeanette, have at it. I'm sure she would love to hear directly from you. What would you say to Jeanette?
Jeanette, we miss you up here in New York. You abandoned us many years ago, and we've never forgiven you for that. But and all kidding aside, we're thinking of you. Obviously, we love you here. There are a lot of people that love you in New York City, including me and Ethan, and we miss you. We're wishing you the best. And everyone is saying this, but I'm going to say it. But if you approach this illness the same way you approach pool, with the same determination, you'll beat it.
Awesome. Well, Greg, we really appreciate you taking the time to join us. I know how busy you got to be. I hear New York's pool rooms are reopening soon. So we wish you guys the best of luck, and your generosity for the Jeanette Lee Legacy Fund is great. So thank you so much for joining us.
Okay. Thanks, guys, for having this. Kudos to you guys, too.
Cheers. Thanks. That's awesome. So, again, Mike, so much history there with Jeanette and everything. We do want to remind people, again, Greg mentioned, Amsterdam is going to kick in $2,500 to the GoFundMe page, and we would encourage others to do the same thing. Again, we'll kind of keep our eye on that as we go through the night. And I think we're getting close to having our second guest ready. Here in the background, I'm getting little notes and things that says our next guest. Do you want to introduce our next guest for us, Mike?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you talk about great women champions. Lori John Hassan is right there. I was there when she won the World Straight Pool Championship as a 15-year-old, becoming the youngest world champion in any sport. And she never stopped winning. She 8 world titles and 3 national championships and 3 U.S. Opens and the Hall of Fame in 2003. You did that all. And I remember you when you won your first world championship, and you had that short little hair, and you were 15 years old, and you don't look a day different.
Yeah.
So, so thanks so much for joining us. As I mentioned earlier on, when Jeanette hit the scene, the Classic Tour was kind of really in its groove. It was really rolling. And she hit the tour like a ton of bricks. What was your first impressions when she came on the scene? Did it seem like she rattled too many cages? What was your take?
So if I was going to lie, I would say, what I'm supposed to say, but I'm going to tell you the truth. I came on, I said, who the hell does this person think she is? Who is this? Who is she? And she was like a snowball. She never stopped. She came on with fire, and she was fierce, and she was, I am here and I'm here to stay. And she made a statement.
And how long did it take you to realize that it just wasn't persona, that she had the game?
Pretty fast. I mean, it was pretty fast. I mean, she was, you could see that she could play. It wasn't like, okay, I think I'm beautiful. I think I'm this, and you didn't have the game to go with it. Oh, she had the game to go with it. And I knew that pretty soon, soon, that when she came on.
Yeah. She was a great champion. You guys played many times. But you also spent some personal time with her. And what can you tell me about the Jeanette off the table that people may not know about, or things that you learned about her over time that allowed you to get closer to her?
So, in our sport, you always have to be on, so whenever we're at tournaments or exhibitions or something, Jeanette is always on. And I understand that, and sometimes you don't get to see past that wall. And sometimes people take it to where you're snotty, or, you know what I mean? I've had people think that I was like, uppity or something like that. And you're really not. You just have to be a certain way. So when I did an exhibition in Indiana, where she was living at the time, she invited me over for the weekend, and I can't tell you how special that was. It changed my view of her even more. You know what I mean? Like I saw her with her kids, and like this whole thing that the GoFundMe and everything. I mean, it's for the kids, and it chokes me up, because I have kids and I get it. Her kids are young. And she made spaghetti from scratch, sauce, like she made spaghetti sauce from scratch. And I remember we had a great spaghetti dinner with garlic bread and salad. And, but she was just not on. She was just mom, she was just mom and just a friend. And we got to talk about nothing and everything. And it was the best thing. It was the best time that I've ever seen, for me off the table was that weekend.
Yeah, that's great.
And she's such a good mom.
Yeah, and that's you were one of the faces of pool as well, where you were pulled in a lot of different directions, and had to make sacrifices, and had to be on all the time and all that, and be a mom. How difficult is that?
Very. it's very difficult because you struggle with wanting to, you know, be there all the time for every one of your kids, whatever it is, and you can't all the time. So it's a juggling act. It really is a juggling act. As far as Jeanette, I think she did a phenomenal job because she always had either her mom or somebody with her, and she trudged the kids came along, you know, and
They did.
I was like, I love this, you know, this is great, you know. So even though somebody was watching them, they were there with her a lot of times, and I love, you know, I love that fact about her, you know. So she's very passionate. Whatever Jeanette's passionate about, it's her number one.
Yeah, true.
So it's her number one, and that's what it is.
Great.
Absolutely. So, Lori, John, I'm curious again. You know, we're asking each of our guests to do this, but you know, at some point, Jeanette will tune in. I don't know if she's watching live now, but you know, I'm curious what you would say directly to Jeanette. I know I think I saw on the GoFundMe page that you had a group of folks that had made a very generous donation, which I think is awesome and encouraging people. But from your heart, from you specifically, what would you like to say to Jeanette tonight?
Jeanette, you came on in the 90s, I guess, with fire, and you have always fought. You have fought your way to number one. You have fought your way to show people who you really are, and you are going to fight this, and you are going to win, and your children are going to, they're going to see their mom. They're going to see their mom fight this and win. And don't ever give up, Jeanette. Just please don't ever give up. You fight this. You have Jean next to you, your family, and all of us. I am praying for you on a daily basis. I promise you I am. And I'm praying for a miracle.
Thank you.
That's awesome. Thank you very much for joining us tonight, Lori, John, and again, folks, if you can, if you're able, times are tough, obviously, with the pandemic, but if you're able, $5, $10, $20, whatever you can do, that GoFundMe page, you know, that's all that money is going to go to support, you know, Jeanette's medical expenses and obviously the future of her children. So again, thank you for joining us, and we really appreciate that. Mike, I think we have another guest about ready, but it's not the guest you're expecting. I think we're actually switching. We've got Jeanette's agent, Tom George, the man responsible for setting up the GoFundMe page, and he's going to join us. But I do want to touch on something real quick, Mike, that Lori John said there, which was, you know, Jeanette was always on. And I've seen that. When we did the Black Widow tour, you know, there were times, the big part of the Black Widow tour was not just going out and doing these exhibitions for the fans, but it was working with the media, you know, to get the word out and to get people interested in pool. And most of the media stuff we would do would be the day of the exhibition. The exhibition would be at night. We would do the media rounds, but it was always first thing in the morning. And a lot of times it was like 5:30 in the morning, 6 o'clock in the morning. And, you know, Jeanette's a pool player, right? Above all else, she's a pool player. Pool players are not early morning people. But inevitably, every time I would ask Jeanette, hey, do you think we can do this? You know, and I would put on my, you know, my best pouty face. And every single time the answer was yes. I mean, she never turned down the media stuff. And I believe it's one of the reasons that she, you know, ascended as high as she did, is every time there was a media opportunity, the answer was yes. It didn't matter if it was 5:30 in the morning, 5:30 at night. You got the same Black Widow. You know, you got the same Black Widow at dawn as you got at dusk, right? I mean, she was always on. That speaks to what Lori John had to say. And I know our next guest is going to speak to that as well, because he's worked with her on the business side for so many years. And that is her agent, Tom George. Mike, I'll let you'll formally introduce Tom, and hopefully he'll be ready to pop in here momentarily.
Well, Tom will reiterate what you said, you know, when we get him in here, and that's that, you know, Jeanette just didn't miss opportunity. She was ready to work as hard as she had to work. And even if it was an opportunity that wasn't going to pay off right away, if it was about meeting people and creating contacts and then being able to turn those contacts into business deals, that's what she was willing to do. Tom, you know, that's the type of thing that you don't get from a lot of your clients. They want you to do all the work for them. Jeanette would do 50% of the work, correct? Tom?
I can see you guys.
Okay. Well, yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you too.
Tom,
So-
we were just kind of talking about Jeanette's work ethic and the fact that, she never turns down a media appearance when she could do it. Didn't matter if it was 5 a.m., didn't matter if it was 10 p.m. She was always on. And we were just talking about her work ethic, which is really what made her so different and so special. And so I know you can speak to that all the years you guys have worked together.
10 p.m. sports talk show in Waukesha, Wisconsin. She did it. She did it. And I'll tell you one of the things we did that was really ended up being really great. If you go to the Super Bowl, there's a thing called Radio Row. And they put all the media from all over the country in the same like ballroom, and it's like massive. And we'd figure out something to promote, and we would walk. Jeanette would walk, and I would tail by next to her. But Jeanette would walk looking like Jeanette down Radio Row, and she would do interview after interview after interview because they're all looking for something. And there's Jeanette walking past the interview, and we would do that for an entire afternoon. Some of it happens naturally. Some of it you have to work for. She was willing to work for it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you saw that after she became your client. What convinced you to take her on? What was it about her, and who sold who on the idea?
Of me representing her?
Yes.
Oh, that would be Jeanette selling me. And that's okay. I'm going to tell you a story. I want to start with Jeanette disavows this story every time I tell it. She claims it didn't happen. But I have witnesses. It did happen. So we represented a basketball player named Travis Best in Indiana, turns out. And I had represented Ava Mataya a couple years before that. It was just way too much work for the return. Just way too much work. So I heard from one of our basketball agents that Jeanette Lee, the Black Widow, wanted to talk to us about representation. And I decided to take what I thought was going to be a call so it wouldn't bother the rest of my staff. No, she's coming in. She's going to come in and see you. Really? Okay. So she comes into the conference room looking like the Black Widow looks, except this time she's wearing a little white waistcoat. And as she's sitting at the conference table, she makes this big deal about taking off the waistcoat and hanging it on the back of the chair. Now she's wearing a black halter jumper. And that's the part she disavows. And she starts talking about this, and I'm telling her why I don't want to represent her. And she says, look, why don't we just do this? I'll bring you deals that come to me. You negotiate them and do the legal, and we'll do, and that's what we'll do. That's it. I said, oh, that's all you want? She says, yes. I said, okay, I can do that. And she said, oh, thank you very much. I said, relax. You had me at waistcoat. Which is a good, but she definitely sold her way into Octagon, and I was the senior guy there. So she's talking to me mostly because I didn't want to waste the time of the rest of my staff. And I got a bunch of crap for signing her too, because what are you doing in billiards, Tom? There's no money in billiards. You're just signing her because she's a really good looking woman. And I thought about that for a second. I said, well, it is easier to sell really good looking people than not. I must say that. That's part of the appeal. But what happened was after that was remarkable. She became the human lead machine. She was bringing me so much good leads to follow that within a few months we were representing her full bore, because the activity and the money being generated, though still much less than like team sport athletes. I mean, she's not Grant Hill. I mean, it's just not. But it was certainly enough volume, and there was no negative energy. There was no cancellations. There was no oops, I forgot. There was none of that. Nobody works it harder than Jeanette.
Yeah, she was supposed to go to a Super Bowl event once when all the flights were canceled because of weather. And what did she do?
She called me. And because we had a whole bunch of Super Bowl events going on, and we were canceling most of them, when the call came in, I as is my wont, I talked over her, and so don't worry about Jeanette. Don't worry. I know that it's everybody's canceling. They'll understand. I'll just call them and tell them. And she goes, no, Tom, no. We got in the car. She was in Indianapolis. The Super Bowl was in Atlanta. She said, we got in the car and we're driving to Atlanta. We're halfway across Kentucky. We're going to make it. And I remember looking at the phone like the phone going, really, who is this? And it ended up being a wonderful event that has store off of it anyway. But that event, she made no cash for that event. She got 2 Super Bowl tickets, which, okay, that's
Cash value.
That's compensation. But you can't eat it, but it is compensation. And because she wanted to go to the Super Bowl. So that's the kind of effort she gave to get to the gigs. Almost everybody else canceled. She did not.
Yeah, she's a hard worker.
Hard worker and listens. That'll surprise both of you.
Yes, it is. Very.
But she does listen strategically. And I will say this about her too. She was always 2 steps ahead of me. So I'm thinking we're here, and that is where we were. And I'm thinking, okay, and then we go. And she said, why aren't we doing this? I said, you're right, but that's 2 steps from now. You got to do this and do this, and we'll do that. And we sort of built it brick by brick in a lot of ways. But some of it's luck. Women's Billiards was on ESPN in the middle of her heyday. We could have done everything else exactly the same, and without that, it would not have done what it did.
Well, she became a pretty good ESPN face. She did some sideline stuff for them. She was under commercials. They loved her there.
They benefited from her, no question. But if they had not chosen to broadcast women's billiards, it would have been a bright light under a bushel basket, because nobody would have known it was there. Yeah. I say some things I'm not sure 100% true, but I say them anyway. I think she's the most famous billiards player ever. I don't think there's anybody worldwide as famous as Jeanette Lee as the Black Widow, because not that many people know Jeanette Lee knows her as the Black Widow. Right. I think she's the most famous, and I think she made the most money in legitimate billiards earnings, prize money, exhibitions, endorsements, that type of stuff. Although still, by comparison to team sport athletes, it's a pittance. I mean, there's Major League Baseball players or pitchers that will make more by June than she made her entire career, and that's really true.
Okay, appreciate it.
Yeah, Tom, and I want to mention, because obviously you're the one that basically set up this GoFundMe page for, and that's what we're doing here tonight, is we're encouraging people to donate if they can to the Jeanette Lee Legacy Fund. If you could just speak on what that fund is for. I mean, obviously we've mentioned it, but I know it's very near and dear to your heart, so I want to give you a chance to pitch it.
I went down to see, as soon as the diagnosis came out, I went down to see Jeanette like a week later. I was down there on the weekend. And what became very clear in her talk with me, the thing that was in the front of her mind the most, the anxiety that was the most, was leaving her kids. Now, leaving her kids and not having a mother, can't fix that one if that happens. But she also talked about leaving the kids without enough money to do what they should do. So we set up the fund for the care and feeding of her kids through until adulthood, and to send them to college. And we're working on setting up that trust right now. And as soon as that trust comes, we're going to take that money and transfer it over to it'll be held in trust, whether Jeanette will be the trustee. If Jeanette passes through her will, the trustee will pass to whoever she designates.
Well, I just want to tell you how grateful we all are that you've set that up, because, when I heard the news, it's one of those things where, I did not reach out to Jeanette immediately, because I didn't just want to call and say, I'm really sorry. I wish there was something I can do. Here we are. There is something we can do. We're doing it tonight. We're going to continue to do it in the days and weeks ahead. And that is to help her and her family financially as they move forward. But also to put a smile on her face, right? She has spent her career giving and giving.
I'm not a particularly sensitive person. I'm not real good at comforting. But so my mind went immediately to problem solving. And look, having an idea to do a GoFundMe page, not a particularly nouveau idea, but it's not the idea, but it was, we were able to get cooperation from you, from Billiards Digest and Mike Pinozzo, from the Asian Hall of Fame, from Octagon, from a whole bunch of people, because having a GoFundMe page is one thing. Letting everybody know about it is the key to its success. And the coverage, I have been absolutely overwhelmed and gratified by the number of people who cared and cared at a high level. Yahoo Sports, TMZ, Deadspin, Washington Post, New York Post. I mean, amazing number publications in Hong Kong, the Philippines, and India, all covering this thing. I'm going, well, the bad news is it's bad news. The good news is people care, and that's shown very clearly from the results in the GoFundMe page. I'm blown away, quite frankly. I'm excited. If we do this right, her desire to have her kids taken care of until adulthood could actually be real. That would be a wonderful thing to be able to say.
Yeah,
Tom, before we move on to our next guest, I do want you to just take a minute and, at some point, Jeanette will tune in and see this. And so, what would you like to say just specifically to Jeanette from your heart?
I'm going to be I'm not good at that. I want her to call me. I got some stuff. I want her to call me.
Good luck.
I got sticky notes on top of sticky notes of the things that are happening. And look, and she's the chemo is kicking her butt. And when it's not kicking her butt, the anxiety about her kids and all the stuff that's to do when you're facing a life-threatening episode. I'm trying to be very while I'm trying to sift through this stuff. I'm trying to be very conscious of that. But seriously, tell her to call me.
In true agent fashion.
Yes.
Tom, we really appreciate you joining us. We're going to let you run. Mike, I think we've got our next guest pretty close to ready to join us. But before we do that, again, I want to mention the GoFundMe page. Again, if you're looking to donate, you can do that through the Jeanette Lee Legacy Fund. You can go to the GoFundMe page. You can search Jeanette Lee and you'll find everything there. So, Mike, our next guest. Yeah, thanks again, Tom. Mike, I think our next guest was supposed to jump in before Tom, but he's just joined us in the green room. Big name in the pool world, a Hall of Famer, and I'll let you introduce him, the Scorpion, if you will.
It must be Johnny Come Lately. It must be Johnny Come Lately. Yeah, well, Johnny Archer is, one of my favorite players ever. Won the World Championship 4 times. Couple dozen Pro Tour wins, player of the decade. To me, the greatest Team USA Mosconi player ever. He's been around a long time. He's played a lot with Jeanette, played in some doubles events with Jeanette, has been on tour with her. So I know that he's got some stories about her. Is he popping in now?
And he's right on cue.
J.A.
What's going on, Mr. Mikey?
How you doing, buddy?
So, okay.
We're talking about Jeanette, and particularly the early days, and she was very vocal in her early days about she wants to be the best, and she was a poolaholic, and she would play 12, 15 hours a day, and she spent a lot of time. She thought the women were good players, but she loved the men's games. And
yes.
She used to chase you guys around all over the place to get you to practice with her and things like that. What do you remember about those days? What was she like?
Well, the one thing I remember about Jeanette, of course, the way she looked. I mean, that was the first thing you remember. But I mean, she just showed up. She was this skinny little girl that came, and I mean, she was pestering everybody. I want to practice with you. Can you teach me how to break? Can you do this? Can you play? Can you do this? And she was a pest, but I'm going to tell you what, she learned. And I mean, she got to be so much fun to be around. And, she was, I remember when her running around with Helena Thornfeld a lot, showing up at a couple of tournaments. And, but that's what she did. She just hung out with the guys and played and played and played. And I mean, she just continued to play. And, I just showed in her game, and she was so much fun, and she's been a great ambassador.
She won the Derby City Late Night Action Award one year, didn't she?
She did, yeah. Her and I think her and George was doing a lot of the gambling. So, yep, that's exactly right.
Yeah, did she play any sets with you?
Oh yeah. Well, we never gambled, but
okay.
But yeah, I watched her all the time, and she was tough to beat gambling. Now I'm gonna tell you, she was very tough to beat gambling.
So you played mixed doubles with her once in China, right? In 2011, In
Yes.
the mixed doubles tournament. You came in second to Efren and Rubel and Omelet, right?
That's exactly
Yeah.
Efren and Rublin. Yeah, it was a good match. I made some definitely mistakes, and we had a chance to win. Actually, I thought we was going to win. We mixed it very good. We beat some good teams during that event.
What was she like as a doubles partner, and what was it like traveling with her?
Well, I mean, the one thing I noticed that she had that intimidation factor. Whoever we were playing against, you could tell they were intimidated, whether it be a guy or a girl. So, I just kind of rode her coattails a little bit, and we were a good team. I mean, we really enjoyed being around each other. We had such a, I don't know, we had a lot of. I don't know. We had a lot of the same thoughts and the same way to run out. So it got to be pretty easy. We didn't have to talk a whole lot, but we both were talkers. We really both talkers. So we enjoyed that, and we're good friends. She actually did my grand opening in Marriott Billiard Club. She was there. So we go pretty well back, and we just really enjoyed it. I enjoyed that. I missed that event. Really did. Definitely missed playing with her.
Are you telling me that she intimidated Efren?
Oh, I think so. I mean, if anybody could, it would have been Jeanette, myself, because she created that that presence. She created that presence that you want to be able to create. And anytime she played, whether it be like I said, like it be against a man or not, it really. I don't know. It just kind of it was unique. You didn't see a lot of people be able to create that, and and people gravitated to her, so they always pulled for her. So that made it hard to play against her.
Yeah. Is that what made her special in your eyes?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. She just the people just gravitated to her, and personality, and I mean the night that she done grand opening for me. She did her trick shots, and then it was over. She stayed to the very last person left. She signed every autograph. She took every picture. She talked to everybody personally. Kind of like I don't know, kind of like Arnold Palmer did. Arnold Palmer always made a point to connect with you. To really connect with you when he talked to you. It wasn't just he shook your hand and said, "I got to go." He connected with you. He made you know that that he knew you were there.
Yeah.
And Jeanette had that, yeah, and it was really unique, and it was fun to see.
Yeah, great.
Johnny, we appreciate you joining us tonight. But before we send you on your way, again, at some point, Jeanette will sit down and have a chance to watch this. And so, from a personal standpoint, what would you like to say to Jeanette?
Well, this is something as far as somebody trying to talk to her, you don't prepare for this. But of course, she can't prepare for this. But just to know that the Lord's on her side, and the Lord's on her side. Stay in faith. I know that's difficult. I know she's having a tough time with the chemo right now. I mean, just know that we're all there for her, and she has made it. And no matter when she leaves, she has made an impact on this game that will never ever be forgotten, and probably won't never be duplicated. She's made a mark in the game, and I think that's something that we all want to do, including myself for sure. So she's done it. She's made an indelible mark on her kids. I know her kids and the people that love her, and she's just you can just see this is just so much love, and we love you, Jeanette. We're gonna you're not gone till you're gone. So I don't want to say we're gonna miss you, because I want to just say you're not gone till you're gone, and I understand. I do.
We appreciate you joining us, Johnny. That's
Yeah.
high praise from a Hall of Famer to another Hall of Famer, folks, and it doesn't get any realer than that. So, Johnny, thank you very much for joining us. Again, folks, there is a way we can help Jeanette, and that is by making donations to the Black Widow Legacy Fund that is there, that has been set up to support Jeanette and support her children. And, kind of like we've said here tonight, it's, you want to do something when someone is in need, and this is what we can do for her right now. So we do encourage you to donate it if you're able to, right? So, and spread the word, right? Share a link to the donation page if you can. So again, thank you for joining us, Johnny. We appreciate it. Mike, I think
Thank you guys so much for what you're doing. This is unbelievable what you and Mike and every guys doing. I appreciate it, and I know she does too.
We appreciate
absolutely.
you, Jay.
Yeah.
Thanks
no
again,
problem.
Johnny.
God
So,
bless
Mike,
you guys.
thank you. You know, it's interesting, Mike, what Johnny had to say about Jeanette's faith. You know, and I'll go back to the conversation that we had with her last week, and she said something really amazing. And I know you and I both noted it right away. I looked at the video chat. I saw you writing it down as I was writing it down, and Jeanette said, "God is not done with me. This is another chance for me to inspire others," or basically something to that effect.
Right.
And you know, I don't think she realized the weight of what she had said, but you know, you and I looked at it and just thought that's amazing for someone going through what she's going through, to one, to have that kind of faith, but to also feel that she still has a responsibility or a need to inspire others like she's done her entire life. And that's truly amazing about Jeanette.
And but you're saying, you know, she's done it her whole life. So this is what she does. You know, pool is her love and her passion and the thing that drives her, but it drives her for, you know, with purpose. And she's learned to channel that to inspire people through the things she's done, through the battles she's overcome. So for her to, you know, recognize that, like I said, at a time where you just got dropped with this news, and to still be able to pull that kind of perspective, yeah, it's pretty impressive, pretty astonishing. It was interesting to see Johnny get choked up like that, because, you know, you're talking about, you know, one of the greatest players ever played a game, and what he shows is that there's a kinship with these pool players. You know, they spend a lot of time with each other, and they're not cushioned by agents and, you know, packs and, you know, posses or whatever. They hang with each other, and they mean a lot to each other.
It's definitely a special camaraderie that you see there. So speaking of Hall of Famers and fellow pool players, I think we've got Nick ready to go. Mike, if you want to introduce our next guest, and I'm sure he'll pop in as you are giving an appropriate introduction.
Nick is the first professional player I met when I started with the magazine in 1980, and he was the nicest guy in the world. He's still the nicest guy in the world. And you know, talk to anyone, one of the greatest all-around players to ever hold a cue in his hand. And that sets him apart from most pool players. He was two-time collegiate champion. So just the fact that he was in college is pretty good. He went to Purdue, two-time collegiate champion there. Had some great player of the year, you know, Hall of Fame career, obviously. In one year in 1989, the men's pro tour had 16 pro tournaments. Nick won 8 of them.
Wow.
I mean, I can't even try to explain to someone what that means when you look at the fields that he was in with. I mean, it was Alan Hopkins, Jimmy Rempe, Mike Siegel, Steve Mizrak, Buddy Hall, you know, just all in their primes. And he won 8 out of the 16 tournaments. So, yeah, Nick Varner is.
He probably bought a lot of dinners back then, I guess, too, for those guys, right?
I don't remember Nick buying any dinners, to tell you the truth. No, Nick's a great guy, and you know, he knows Jeanette very well over the years. He's been a captain, you know, co-captain with her with Junior Team USA, and yeah, he's been around a while. He's seen a lot, and I know he's a big Jeanette fan.
Well, and hopefully he'll be popping in here momentarily. I know he was in our virtual green room, and you know, we're kind of navigating some back end things here, but hopefully he will pop in. But like you said, Mike, it is pretty amazing to see, you know, these guys on, you know, on the men's side of things, and you know, to be able to appreciate, you know, Jeanette's success on the opposite side of the coin. And to really take note of it and to admire it and speak so highly of it. Really a cool thing, you know.
Yeah, it is. And you know, in the days when I first started, most of the pro tournaments, the men and the women played in the same tournament. There was a men's division and a women's division. And those really were the most fun days, when they were all in the same hotel together, playing in the same ballroom. And you saw a lot of that interaction, and the men, you know, they did respect the women players who would put in the time and the effort to be out on tour and travel around the country shoulder to shoulder with them and playing these tournaments. Those were fun days.
So it looks like we're trying to track down Nick. He somehow disappeared from our virtual green room and has not made his way here. So I tell you what, let's move ahead to our next. Oh, there he is. Right on cue, right as we're about to move on. Nick Varner.
Nick, you there?
Yes. Hi, Mike.
How you doing, buddy?
Good, good.
You've known Jeanette a long time. I think the second cover she was on for our magazine was 1994 Player of the Year that you and her both won. And I know you have an interesting recollection about talking to her the start of that year and then talking to her at the end of that year. What was that like?
Yeah, it's funny. I just saw Mike Demata, and he's getting ready to come on here in a little bit. And Jeanette and I were in, actually New Jersey, right across from New York. And we were doing a photo shoot for Falcon Q's together. And anyway, they had a blizzard like you wouldn't believe. Like they closed down every airport. So after the photo shoot, Jeanette says, "What are you going to do tonight?" I said, I want to really work hard on being Player of the Year this year. And so I'm going to the pool room tonight. And she says, "You mind if I come along and maybe we can play?" And I said, "Yeah, that'll be fine." And what was funny is then come December, I'm in Reno playing, and you'd sent a photographer there, and
Right.
And both Jeanette and myself, we won the Player of the Year, and it was when we went to Reno. I said, "Fancy seeing you again." And so that was kind of a fun year. And then we were playing in that tune-up for the Moscone Cup with the Moscone Cup team at Ballpark Village in St. Louis. I think you were there.
Yep.
And anyway, Jeanette and I played as partners the first round. We played Bergman and Deshane. And anyway, we didn't get the races were short, and you didn't get any time to warm up. You just had to play. And so she's got on these heels that were so tall, these spike heels, must have been 4 inches at least. And so I got her right on the 50-yard line, like every game. She had to cut the ball so much, it's unbelievable. I'm looking at them high heels and I'm thinking she's got no chance. I tell you what, she made every one, and we won the match undefeated. We never lost a game, and I was really impressed that she could make those hard shots with the heels that high. They were incredible.
What did you think of her game as a competitor?
Yeah, she was an intense competitor. When we went to the pool room at night in New Jersey, I was amazed because I was really into trying to play my very best. And she just sat there. A lot of people, after a set or two, they said, "I think I've got a table by myself." I have to give Jeanette credit. She's really got some strong character, and she really hung in there the whole night. And I always remember that about her playing the entire night rather than going and getting the table for herself.
Yeah. Well, you worked with her as co-captains of Junior Team USA, did you not? And how was she with the young kids?
Well, she did real good. They all look up to her, and she's such a workaholic. I think she worked them about half to death. But that's Jeanette. When I think about her success over the years, I can see that it didn't come without effort and work on her part.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. We've heard that from a number of guests, Nick, talking about her work ethic and really just, constantly putting effort into not only her game, but her brand overall and building it to what it was. Nick, before we let you go, at some point, again, Jeanette will likely tune in and see this as she may be watching live. What would you, from a Hall of Famer to a Hall of Famer, what would you say to Jeanette from a personal standpoint?
Well, I appreciate seeing her all these years and in the promotion that she's done for the game and help it grow. And I know she's facing. I know she's facing a tough time ahead. So I got her in my prayers, and I wish her the best of luck. And if anybody can do it, Jeanette Lee can.
Agreed.
Awesome. Well,
Agreed.
Nick, we really appreciate you taking your time to join us and share some of your special memories of Jeanette. And I know she greatly appreciates it as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Jason. Thanks, Mike.
You bet, Nick.
All right. So again, Mike, we continue to hear about this work ethic, and then you start to really get a picture for what made Jeanette different, right? I mean, obviously the look, right, was a big deal, and Tom George talked about it. It certainly helps when you can look like a Hollywood type star, but without the game, without her expertise on the table, none of it happens. And so she's very true to her craft.
Yeah, she is, and like we've said a couple of times, I mean, she developed this brand and built it into something, but it was all based on her wanting to be the best pool player in the world.
Yeah.
And so that's what always drove her first. And that's where all that energy and all that don't quit and all that perseverance comes in. It comes from her, the way she looked at pool as she was growing up. So, yeah, she's an amazing person.
And I think, our next guest has a lot of experience with Jeanette on the pool table. I think they've probably gone head to head a few times. And, our next guest also knows something about being a face of the Ladies Pro Tour, and a lot of similarities to Jeanette. So I'll let you go ahead and introduce our next guest, and hopefully she'll pop in right on cue.
If anybody's got impeccable timing, it's Ava.
Right.
3-time world champion, WPBA national champion, US Open champion, Hall of Famer. She authored 4 books. But, what I think of her most with, I mean, she'd probably get mad because it's not a playing thing, but the 1992 cover of New York Times Magazine. That changed everything in pool for a number of years, and certainly in women's pool. And so while Jeanette, made her breaks and worked as hard as she did, Tom's right. Unless the women's pro game was where it was at that time, I don't think she benefits as much from it as she otherwise would have. And so a lot of that would be owed to this lady. Hello, Ava.
Hi, Ava, the striking Viking. Are there two better nicknames in pool than the striking Viking and the Black Widow? I mean, I don't know if it gets any better nickname-wise. It's good to see you, Ava.
Good to see you guys.
So, we were talking about the 92 cover of New York Times Magazine, and you being the face of pool, and the women's tour really taking off then. And right around then, when she came thundering in, what was your initial reaction?
When Jeanette came on?
Yeah.
You know what? She was an amazing looking woman, which we've had quite a few coming on to the tour, beautiful women, with a dream of being the best player in the world and all that. But not too many of them can actually deliver. And here was Jeanette. She just kind of walked in and with this real attitude and everything else. And she delivered. I mean, it was just amazing. She came on saying, I'm going to be the #1 player in the world. And there she was. I mean, it was pretty amazing how fast it happened, how strong she was. She just kind of followed up on what she had dreamed about, what she wanted to do, and what her plan was.
Yeah. Fast forward 2 years from 92 to 94, that was her breakout year. Mm-hmm. She won 5 tournaments that year. I think a third of the tournaments that the women had. I think there were 15. She didn't win the big one that year, did she?
No, she didn't.
World Pool Championship in Arlington Heights, Illinois, and you played Jeanette in the final.
Yeah.
And she literally threw in the towel.
She did. She did. It was one of those where I was just completely on. And I really wanted to win. You know, I had been number one until the 2 years before that, and I had struggled with it because exhibitions picked up. I wasn't practicing like I was, and that tournament meant a lot to me. Jeanette was playing great, and I think it was a race to 7, and it was like 6-2, and I was running out, and I got on the 9 ball, and she threw in the towel, and it was great in a way because I was, you know, worried about making that last 9 ball, even though it was easy, because that's the moment you get when you're facing, you know, that kind of a title. But at the same time, you know, kind of stole the moment a little bit. But I know it wasn't intentional. It was one of those, she just went, okay, I give, what the heck.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I was playing well back then, not at my top like I had been a couple of years before, but that meant a lot to me to win that tournament, especially considering how incredibly well Jeanette was playing that year. It was unbelievable.
Yeah. Well, she had lost the World Championship final the year before as well, I believe, to Lori.
In Germany, right?
Germany.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To Laura John, I believe.
Right. So you mentioned about you know, how your game had struggled a little bit because it was so difficult to balance all this stuff. So, you know, you're uniquely qualified to, you know, talk about the challenge of keeping up your game and your personal life when you've got the weight of the tour on your shoulders as being the face of the game.
Right.
You know, discuss what that was like. I mean, and you know, you could put yourself into her head easily, I'm sure, because you were there.
Yeah. You know, it's a very difficult thing because in a sport like billiards, just winning tournaments isn't enough to secure your future. Forget about paying your bills, but your future, your retirement, you know, it's not like you're making, you know, $2.6 million when you win a tournament. So you have to couple that with endorsements, with sponsorships, with exhibitions. And once, you know, I remember talking to Jeanette about this. Once we did an interview together at some point, and they asked me how many exhibitions do you do a year, and I said I don't remember what it was, but she said, well, I don't do that many. But shortly thereafter, she started to. And it affects your game. I mean, you know, luckily for Jeanette, but she did not have children until later on. I had my daughter at the time, and by the time Jeanette got children, it gets really hard because I know she's a great mom. She really cares about her kids, and you feel guilty all the time. Now, most working moms or dads, I mean, you go through it all the time, kind of weighing, you know, doing your career at that age and your, you know, raising your children. But it's really hard because you're on the road, you're gone all the time, you get a job and you're going, yeah, but she's about to, you know, go have a little graduation party from 1st to 2nd grade, you know, so it's tough. It really, really, really is difficult.
So, I mean, she had that type of tenacity. It takes a special person to do what you and she did.
No question.
Yeah. Yeah. You did a fair amount of exhibition work and things like that with her, didn't you? What were those like when you guys could be, you know, be on but have fun at the same time?
Well, you just kind of have fun. I mean, there's no greater game than pool. I mean, as far as just kind of goofing around and having a good time. And exhibitions are not like tournaments. I mean, you're out there for the enjoyment of the people around you. So we just kind of loosened up and had fun. I'm much more of an introvert than Jeanette is. Jeanette loves to be in the spotlight. She loves to entertain people. She loves to make them feel good. I'm kind of more, you know, more of a private person. So I would just kind of sit back and go, yeah, Jeanette, you go ahead. You go ahead.
Have at it.
We did a few shows together. We did some charity stuff. We did some in billiard rooms and a couple of events that we did corporate wise. We both charged quite a bit of money to do shows. So there was only so many times that as far as work wise that we worked together. But yeah, we did some shows together.
Yeah. Yeah. And were you involved in her getting it? She talked to you about picking up a franchise when she was looking to become an APA franchise holder, because you're an APA franchise holder.
Yes. It's been 11 years now that I've been with running an APA league here in the Carolinas, and I loved it. And she was telling me that she was looking into opening up a billiard room. And I said, you know what, at this point in your career, you love the game. You love promoting the game. You're intelligent. You're a businesswoman. Besides being a player, I said, look into getting an APA league. So we had done an exhibition for, I think, UBS, a big corporate show that I did with Florian and her and Andy Siegel. And I just said to her, I said, it's a really gratifying thing to be doing that really connects you with our fans and everything else, but make a lot of friends, have a lot of fun with it. So, and then I got to tell you, it was very funny because we played on ESPN, the Hall of Fame Challenge. And right before we were supposed to go on, we had lunch or dinner together before the actual match. And we sat down and had dinner. I think Shane Van Boning was there too, and listening to what we were discussing. And I was just giving her some insight as far as being a league operator. So yeah, it kind of fits into what we do. We've been entertaining our whole life, trying to get people to get into the sport. So, I thought it would be a great thing for her, and she excelled at that too.
Yeah, great.
Ava, before we let you go tonight, at some point Jeanette will tune in and have a chance to watch this. And I know you guys have known each other a long time. What would you like to say from the striking Viking to the Black Widow? What would you say to Jeanette?
Well, I'm sure that I'm not the first to have said it, but with her passion and desire and everything that she has done for the game and for herself and working hard, she's the most hardworking woman most hardworking person in billiards, I believe. If she gives that effort to fighting this thing, Jeanette, you're gonna be okay. And there's an awful lot of people rooting for you out there. Awesome.
Ava, we really appreciate you joining us and adding to this special night for not only for Jeanette, but I think for all of us, and I would remind the folks at home, there is an opportunity here to help Jeanette by going to the GoFundMe page. You can look up the Jeanette Lee Legacy Fund. You can look up Jeanette Lee. I'm sure we've got some links out there on our Facebook page. And that's the way you can help her right now. It's great that we can put a smile on her face by telling stories, but long-term, the financial stuff is really going to help her. And we would encourage you all, if you haven't had a chance to donate, please do so if you're able. So again, Ava, it's great to see you. Hopefully we'll be seeing you again in Vegas. Hopefully Vegas in August. You and I
can't wait
calling the matches, and it'll be good to see you person to person. So thanks again for joining us.
Thanks, Ava.
Thanks, guys.
Okay. Hi to Mitch.
I will.
Mike, it's really remarkable to just, again, hear these Hall of Famers talk about, how outstanding Jeanette, has been, and her work ethic, and just the high praise that comes from them. And you can just see how special, of a person and a worker, that she's really been. And to that end, I want to mention our next guest is a gentleman who kind of knows her on the business side of the game. One of her earliest, big sponsors. And I'll let you go ahead and formally introduce him if you would.
Yeah, it's Mike Demata, and he was the president of Imperial International for many years. And Imperial had a lot of brands under her belt at the time that Jeanette was first starting. She was using a Falcon Q, and Imperial was, the Falcon distributor. And eventually they picked up Q-Tech, and so yeah, Mike, was around the industry for a long time, and was the first big contract for Jeanette. in billiards. She had a couple of smaller, sponsors helping her out along the way. I think she started with a little billiard club in Long Island called Howard Beach Billiard Club, and then she went to Amsterdam, and she had some sponsors like that. But Mike was the first one to really bring her in as a key, face for a company, one of the biggest companies in the sport. So, Michael.
Hey, Mike.
How you doing?
I'm well. How are you?
Good. Looking good.
You look very studious.
Well, you know what? We try to.
I should have had some glass. I had cataract surgery, so now I can see like an eagle.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, good for you. Although I probably don't look as good as I would have hoped. So, you've known Jeanette, I think 1993.
Correct.
Was when you signed her.
Right.
And I believe it was probably at the trade show. I mean, I know that she used, for that year, I think 92, 93, she had her resume together and she'd walk around that trade show and she'd browbeat every company she could for an opportunity. What did it for you?
So it was 93. I'm trying to think. I don't think it was Fort Worth, so I'm trying to remember where it was, but she came into the booth, and obviously Jeanette's very attractive, and she just had a tremendous amount of self-confidence and very engaging. And, we spoke for probably 35, 40 minutes, and then, we're doing the show, trying to sell stuff. So probably a couple of months later, I, decided that it was a good opportunity for her and also for Imperial to have her represent our company. And we signed our first contract then. And after that, it grew. And I'm trying to remember how many years went by on the first one. The second contract was the one that was more money. I remember part of the deal was when I first did the first contract, at that time I was driving a Jaguar, and
the lease Jaguar.
She wanted to have a Jaguar. And it was in her contract. I remember going to my, the parent people, and I say, she wants a Jaguar with the money and stuff. And they were like, what? They were, but it wasn't a deal breaker, and it worked. So she got her car. And also she actually became an employee because we gave her medical benefits. And I recall probably 3 or 4 years into it that she needed to get additional surgery for her back. It worked out obviously for her. So all that stuff was covered because she obviously, it would have been a tremendous amount of an expense for her. So but yeah, that was kind of what happened.
She came in and she wasn't like number one yet. She hadn't even won a tournament yet. What gave you the sense that she could transcend, or do beyond what other pool players could do as sponsored players?
I think it was her drive and her ability to just connect with people. I mean, over the course of all those years, we probably did 50 trade shows. Jeanette did. I mean, I brought her to all these trade shows, and quite frankly, I think she benefited from us bringing her. But she then was able to kind of piggyback her, as long as there's a conflict with us. She made other connections, and she just had this ability to just, especially when she was doing, we bring a table and we do a show, to connect with like a 5-year-old and an adult, and that's like I can't explain it. It's just
special
something in her being that she was able to just make people comfortable who would come up to the table, even though they knew she was a really good player, and she played. And, she would purposely miss a shot, or, she'd do stuff to make them feel good. And it was just very engaging to have her, with us.
And a lot of the shows you brought her to were not billiard shows.
They
were NFL licensee shows, and they were the Super Show and shows like that. Did people recognize her? Did that surprise you at all? How quickly she became a very recognized?
It did, and I'll give you a couple examples. So we did a licensed show at Mandalay Bay, and the NFL was throwing a private party at House of Blues. And we were licensees, so I talked to the guys at the NFL. I said, listen, we can put a table in here, and I can have Jeanette Lee come. They go, really? I said, yeah, she'll come and she'll, do challenges. So we ran it for about 2 or 3 years, and then it kind of worked. But they were just ecstatic. Number one, they were enthralled by her, the way she presented herself and her play. And there were some really very important people that used to come to those NFL private parties. So it worked out really well.
Yeah.
We did another show, and it was a sporting goods show, and it was in the Sands Convention Center. And we had a table set up, and Jeanette was in the booth, and I see this guy walking down the aisle with a camera crew. And he's like blue suit, blue tie, blue shoes. And I'm like, oh, okay. So he stops and he says to this guy, come on. And he sees Jeanette. So he's like, okay, how about we do this and this? And he takes all these shots and it's like, okay. And then he says, okay, we're done. And I was like, so he leaves, and there was a Sands worker there. And I said, who was that guy? Well, it was Sheldon Adelson, the owner of the convention center. This was prior to him building the Venetian. So he knew who she was.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing.
Another story, same show, coming down the aisle is Lynn Swann. I know who he is. She has no idea. So he comes over, and because he sees her, she's wearing, I think at that point she was doing a lot of black, obviously very black, but she had black leather pants on and stuff like that. So she goes, you want to play? And he says, okay, sure. So he gets over the table to shoot, and she goes, oh my goodness. Well, he had one of his Super Bowl rings on. She goes, oh my goodness. He goes, oh, you want to see it? So he took it off and he handed it to her. And then he calmly looked at it. He goes, I have 3 more of those.
Yeah.
And she was like, really? She goes, yeah. So it was very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we did another show in Atlanta. I think it was probably a super show, and Marcus Allen comes to the booth. And he only came to the booth because he recognized Jeanette, and yeah. I was talking to him, and I said, you want to play? He goes, oh, no, I'm terrible. And I said, no, you'll be fine. So I said, Jeanette, this is Marcus Allen. Again, I had to explain who he was. He had already won, I think at that point, they won that. He was with the Raiders when they won the Super Bowl. So, yeah. So, and so he'd actually played, I think he broke, he hit one ball, and then she ran the table.
Nice.
And then she kind of smiled at him. And he was,
here's your hat, what's your hurry?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, we appreciate it.
Yeah.
Mike, we certainly appreciate you coming on and telling us some of these great stories. And I can speak to what you're saying. I mean, being in this industry for 20 years, the number one question I get asked when I tell somebody I'm in pool, and Mike, you can probably speak to this as well, is, people don't ask me about APA. They don't ask me anything about pool. They just say, do you know the dark-haired Asian lady in the leather pants, or right. some generalization right. like that. And, right. and inevitably, almost whether it's the franchising industry, some sports industry thing, they all know the Black Widow. They may not right. exactly know the name, but they know the image of the Black Widow, and that's an amazing thing.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Mike and I were talking the other day, and I happen to agree with him. As far as recognizable pool player, certainly in her generation of the past 25 years, I don't want to, the word's not belittle, but I don't want to take away from all these other great players, but by and far, head and shoulders above all of them, just in terms of recognition and her ability to sell herself. I mean, she made more money endorsing and doing other stuff. And you guys are in the industry long enough to know, professional players did not make a lot of money from the tournament.
Yeah, sure.
She did that thing with Seagram's, where, how to handle a whiskey woman, that promo where she did in these tournaments in local places, and then it culminated in Las Vegas, where the winner, if he broke and sunk the 8 ball, won $1 million.
Right.
Well, you know, she got paid $200,000 by Seagram's for, I think it was ran over like two-year period. But
Yeah.
I mean, that's the kind of stuff that she was capable of doing.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sad about what's going on with her life now. So.
Yeah.
I was going to say, Mike, before we let you run, what would you like to say to Jeanette, just, person to person?
Sure. Well, I would say that, Jeanette, you are by far the most high maintenance woman that I've ever met. But I think that's why you have been so successful. You are a true diva. And my last comment is that this little thing I found, it says everlasting impact with compassion and kindness is called love. And that's Jeanette.
Very nice. Thank you, Mike.
Yeah. Thank you.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us, Mike.
Thank you.
Wow,
Bye.
that's again, so much high praise for Jeanette and the things that she's accomplished. And, he talked about some of the celebrities that she's interacted with. If you've ever been to her house, I mean, her walls are just covered with photos of her and interacting with these celebrities, like you mentioned, Lynn Swann and some of the others. The one that always impressed me the most, Mike, is Muhammad Ali. Muhammad Ali. I mean, like, do you know how hard it is when he was still alive to get next to Muhammad Ali? Like, I mean, that just you just didn't see that a lot. And so, I mean, that is like the mecca of sports star, and for her to have interacted and had time with him, that's a pretty amazing thing. And so I can,
what he said was, it was interesting too, is that, how hard she worked, and everybody has said that.
Yes.
And he used the word self-promotion, and that was a phrase that you really tried not to use around Jeanette, because if you said she was a self-promoter, she would just bristle and she would say, well, who else is going to promote me? Are you going to promote me? Is the WPBA going to promote me? No, you've got to promote yourself. And she understood that. And she knew how to, she had the drive to make that turn into results for her.
Yeah. So I think we've got another guest ready to go. But before we bring in the next guest, Mike, I want to take a pause, and I want to, because I'm sure people are just now tuning in. We've been live streaming for about an hour and a half now. And I want to go back and I want to play the message that came from Jeanette a couple of days ago. She wanted to be able to speak to her friends and her fans directly. And so, Steve, hopefully you've got that video queued up for us. And we'll just sit back and kind of let that play, and folks can hear where Jeanette's at right now and what she's feeling.
Hey everyone, this is Jeanette Lee. As some of you may already know, but I have recently been diagnosed with stage 4 ovarian cancer, and it's been a lot. And I have heard from so many of you. It's such a warm feeling to know that even though I know I've got some incredible fans out there, I've never felt warm, just being wrapped in the warmth of your love so much as these recent times when I've just gone through my second round of chemo. I'm still in the middle of it, and I've lost my hair, as you can see. But I'm really planning on fighting this all the way and coming out on the other hand, on the other side, victorious. And I know that my children give me so much reason to fight through all of this. And it is scary, but I am not alone. I don't feel alone, because I hear you, and I've been getting your emails and your calls and your texts and reading all your messages on all the different social media ways that you guys can get a hold of me. And I just wanted to thank you and let you know that for those of you that are out there fighting a similar fight, that you're not alone, and we can get through this together. And I love you. And I'll try to keep you posted as much as I can, because I don't want to go through this alone. I plan to bring you along for the ride, supporting each other all the way, right? Bye. Mwah.
So again, powerful words there from Jeanette, being able to hear from her directly, to kind of see, obviously, the visual. She's well aware of the, we said this early on, Mike, but when I saw her with the bald head, I told her, I said, Jeanette, not many people could pull off, as well. I mean, you still look like you could step right into a Hollywood scene and pull it off. I mean, you look, and so just so much that she's going through. And then when you hear that video and she's still trying to connect with people that either are going through similar things that she's going through or different challenges in their life. And again, that's one of the things that has always made Jeanette so special is, for the level of celebrity that she has reached, she is as down to earth as it gets, and she genuinely cares about people. You've heard tonight people talk about how giving she is with her time, whether it's an autograph request, a photo request, donate to my charity kind of thing. And I want to mention, speaking of charity, Steve updated us, the GoFundMe page. Again, the purpose for us being here tonight is not only to put a smile on Jeanette's face, but to encourage our viewers to donate to the Jeanette Lee Legacy Fund. That is on a GoFundMe page that's been set up for her. I believe we've increased that a few $1,000s over the course of the stream tonight. And I wanted to mention a Livingston Billiards. I don't know exactly where that's at, but they've kicked in 500 since we started this tonight. So thank you to Livingston Billiards. It sounds like there was an anonymous donor of 500. We talked to Greg Hunt from Amsterdam Billiards earlier, who was getting ready to donate 2,500. So, certainly that's not the expectation from everybody when you donate, but if you can donate $5, if you can donate $10, if you got $100 that you can donate, this is how we help Jeanette right now, right? This is truly how we can help her. And it's so heartening to see how much support has come forth. So, Mike, before we move to our next guest, I want to talk a little bit about one of Jeanette's really big career accomplishments. And it came right around the early part of the 2000s when she competed in the World Games, and she came out of the World Games with a gold medal. What can you tell us about that era of her career?
Well, I mean, it was 2001, and the World Games is the Olympics for IOC sports that are not in the current Olympics. And so those sports compete in World Games every 4 years, just like the regular Olympics. And it took a long time for billiards to get recognized by the IOC. And then once it did, it took a little while for them to get into the World Games. So their first appearance in the World Games was 2001. And for the sport, that was a big deal. And for Jeanette, it was a huge deal because she really, she wanted to see the globalization of the game. She wanted to see it in the Olympics. She wanted to play for country and all that. That was very important to her. It wasn't just another tournament. And so it was in Akita, Japan. I think there were, the World Game gets 2,400 athletes, 26 sports. I think that, there was snooker, there was carom billiards, and there was pool. And I think there were 60 something competitors in the billiard arena. And so for her to be able to get into that atmosphere where you feel like a true international sport and you feel like a world-renowned athlete, it was really important for her to win that. And I don't think there's any event that she won that made her prouder than being able to stand up on that stand with the American flag draped over one shoulder and her gold medal around her neck and her hand on her heart. I mean, that's kind of Jeanette's reason for being in pool all wrapped into one photograph. And it was a huge thing for her. She beat Karen Corr in the final. She's still the only American to ever win a gold medal in the World Games. I think only one other American's even medaled in the World Games, and I think that was Rodney Morris, won a bronze medal once. So yeah, the World Games was a big deal for her.
I think we actually have we have a video clip. I think it was from 2013, just prior to her induction into the Billiard Hall of Fame. And if we can play that clip, Steve, because Jeanette really talks about what that gold medal and that experience meant to her. So hopefully you can cue that up for us.
My most memorable moments as a player has been winning the gold medal at the 2001 World Games. I just came off of back surgery, was informed that I was going to represent as the top U.S. player, and I was laying in the hospital bed when I got the news, and just coming off of back surgery, so really trying to get my game back together being worried that I'm going to be competing for a medal, for an Olympic medal. I mean, this is, it's recognized by the IOC, and I just wanted to do my best, and I knew I wasn't there. So there was excitement and stress combined. And when I got there and I won, I can't explain the feeling when you're standing on a podium looking out at a sea of people among all sports. And the Germans were wearing their warm-ups with the German flag, and the Chinese, and all these different countries and all these different sports. And it's loud as can be, and then suddenly the U.S. national anthem starts playing, and it's silent. It was crazy, silent, flags raised, and it was, I always say there's no crying in pool, but that would have been my moment because I felt like such a sissy, but it was amazing.
So Mike had to correct me. That clip is actually from the 50th anniversary of the Hall of Fame, which was another really special event. That was 2017. Has it been that long, Mike?
Correct.
2017.
2017, yeah.
And Mike was able to bring in really I think almost all the living Hall of Famers were there that night, and it was a really special evening. And a lot of them sat down and talked. And of course, obviously Jeanette, to this day, that gold medal in the World Games is the biggest accomplishment of her career. And so I'm glad we were able to have that clip and to share that. Mike, I think our next guest is about ready to go. And, he's familiar to everyone from the Mosconi Cup fame, the team captain this past year. Of course, we're talking about Double J. I'll let you roll out a proper introduction for Double J.
Well, Jeremy Jones, U.S. Open winner, One Pocket Hall of Fame, sank the winning 9-ball for Team USA in the Mosconi Cup once for a win, and winner twice as the vice captain with Johan, and took over as captain last year. Didn't have the luck he would like to have had, but so much respect in the billiard business, with the pros and the tournaments for Jeremy's knowledge. He does a lot of announcing, color, analyzing for a lot of
fantastic commentator.
He does just a rock solid job. Everybody enjoys listening to him. They always learn so much when you hear him explain what's happening and why. He's a great teacher of the game. And
one of the nicest guys to boot too. I mean, I you don't find anybody that has anything bad to say about Double J. Just one of the nicest guys in the billiard community.
Yeah, he is, and nice, but also just respected. They wondered whether he was too close to the players and too nice to be Team USA captain. But I guarantee you, those players respect him. When it was time to buckle down and be serious, they knew that he meant business. So that's what makes him, a special teacher, and he will. I think he will be a good captain for Team USA for many years to come.
I know we've got him scheduled, I believe, to do our U.S. Amateur Championship commentary coming up in our month. Our first APA championship in over a year. It happens in Tampa next month. So I called him and I said, "Are you in?" And he said, "I am definitely in." So looking forward to that. And he should be hopefully joining us here momentarily. Again, while we wait for Jeremy to join us, just want to remind folks, tonight is all about two things. One is putting a smile on our friend Jeanette Lee's face, knowing that we all love and care about her and we're pulling for her. But it's also about trying to encourage folks to donate to the Jeanette Lee Legacy Fund. That is a fund that's been set aside. It's a GoFundMe page that to help cover Jeanette's medical expenses, as well as to kind of financially safeguard the future of her children, who are very young, 16, I think 12 and 10, or in that range. And so young kids. And here's the man, Double J. What's up, buddy?
Hey, Jason. How you doing?
Good to see you.
Hey, Jeremy.
Hey, Mike. How you doing?
Doing good. Good.
Good.
Thanks for joining us and talking about Jeanette. What was your first recollection of Jeanette? Do you remember?
Yeah, I actually do. I'd be guessing at the year, but I think it was 1993 or 4. I think 94. I of course had heard of her a little bit and had never been around her. And if you remember the McDermott Masters event, It was one of the last events, I think, where really the men and women kind of played together in the same arena. And it was funny. Reed Pierce, to bring up a name, he and I were kind of discussing a match, maybe making a match, And, Reed Pierce, of course, when he's talking like that, he can get a little loud, Reed. Of course, I love him to death, but Reed.
Yep.
And so anyways, Jeanette wasn't far from us, and she heard us talking about action, And so at that time, I don't think Jeanette was much into the gambling. So she came up to us and said, "Hey guys, I don't know if y'all should be doing this in the arena." We were both like, "Yeah, well, we're in Vegas, so we're gonna gamble, So anyways, but it's something I'll never forget for sure. And when I saw Jeanette, of course, you can't miss Jeanette when she walks in the room. Of course, she's just got that type of charisma. So, she wasn't too far from us, obviously, to hear us, but it was a real funny thing. And me and Reed kind of looked at each other, kind of discarded her for a moment, and then we went on about our business. But it was real fun.
Well, you talk a lot. You talk to players a lot about opportunities that the game gives you beyond just tournaments. I know you've talked to players before about being on Moscone Cup. It opens up doors for you, things like that. What can players learn about? Learn from her tenacity, from her drive to develop herself outside of tournament play?
Well, I think first and foremost, probably whatever goals that she had personally set, she believed in them. And she wasn't giving up on them, that's for sure. I think Jeanette probably is in the class with maybe Mizrak only, to where they were the complete package as far as, they had the game, of course, the look, like I said, the charisma, Mizrak, he was a very charismatic person. And then also the drive, I think, which is a part that a lot of people don't have, that never giving up on what they want to do. And I think at all times, a lot of people say about getting away from the game and whatnot, but it seemed like to me when I was around Jeanette at all times, like winning was pretty much number one.
Yeah, sure.
She was there to compete, and she knew that would take her places as well.
Yeah, she was always focused on winning and always focused on the game, and the marketing came afterwards. Did you ever play her? Did she ever, pester you for lessons or to practice with her, or did she ever try to make a game with you?
No, we played a few games at a few places, just warming up or in a function. No, like I said, the men and women, whenever I really started the professional side hard, they were kind of separated, which, we a couple times a year, the BCA, that was always a nice pro event, be around the ladies and get to see them play. But, we had conversations about, she had entertained trying to play more men events or more open events at one time. And then, one thing about Jeanette that I always liked, and I think always makes a better player, is she wasn't afraid to try and step away and play more games. Like she was a big straight pool player. She learned other what's the word I'm looking for? Just other games in our sport. And then she went on to One Pocket, and she realized how great that game was. So just all around a well-rounded player and an individual.
Yeah, and you're such a great announcer and a great teacher, and because you're so knowledgeable and analytical about the game, size her game up in her heyday.
Well, I think probably she always round around the top 5 players, no matter, and she kind of changed eras there for a little bit. With some Allison Fishers and Karen Kors and more of the Asian players coming into play, and even some more Europeans that she competed with. And one thing about Jeanette is like very few people, I guess you might say, is if she would have played with the men all the time, her game would have kept rising as well. Like, you know what I mean? She was just one of those types of people. She wasn't missing the boat too much on what was going on and why it happened. So,
yeah.
Almost really, I think she could still get out there and dominate, to be honest with you, if she had time.
We hope she gets that chance.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely, absolutely. Jeremy, before we send you on your way tonight, we one of the things we've asked each of our guests is, just if you had the chance to say something directly to Jeanette, what do you have to say to her?
Well, just, keep being yourself. One of the big pluses about Jeanette, I think about because I think about players all the time, and what relationships, even if they're small, you think about people all the time, and that's what came across to me about Jeanette is, even as little as you may be around somebody at times, always felt like, she was genuinely thinking about me whenever I was around her. And I think that's a big quality that, if she has the time to do it, even though she's a very busy lady right now, taking care of herself, stick to that. I think that's gonna, just like her message said, she doesn't want to do anything alone. And I think that's a pretty genuine statement.
Awesome.
Great. Thanks,
Jeremy.
J.
Yeah, we certainly appreciate you taking the time to join us tonight. We look forward to seeing you in a couple weeks down at the U.S. Amateur Championship. I know you'll be calling the matches down there, so
Absolutely.
it'd be good to reconnect. And again, thanks for taking the time.
Yeah, no snow down there, hopefully.
Yeah,
all sand. All right.
That's true. All right. Thanks again, Jeremy.
Jason. Thanks, Mike. And good luck, Jeanette. Love you.
Thank you.
Awesome. Mike, one of the things that we haven't really talked about tonight, and having Jeremy on it just kind of reminded me, but the Mosconi Cup, Jeanette was actually on the very first Mosconi Cup team. Isn't that right?
She was in the very first Mosconi Cup. They had two women players on each team. She and Vivian played for Team USA. I think Allison and Francesca Stark from Germany played on the European team. I think, I can't remember whether she won her matches or lost her matches, but yeah, she played in that first.
She was there, the very first Mosconi Cup. So that's an interesting trivia you should remember, folks. That's right. Jeanette Lee was on the very first Team USA for Mosconi Cup. Mike, I think we got another guest ready to go. This guest is a close friend of Jeanette's, comes out of, kind of has followed somewhat in the footsteps of the Black Widow, comes from New York and has achieved some of that mainstream kind of outside the pool world coverage through, TV. And I know she was in Maxim magazine and a number of different things. And I'll let you go ahead and introduce her.
Yeah, of course. Jennifer Beretta, she joined the tour later. She joined in the early 2000s, but, numerous TV appearances in the women's tour. She won a big event in Korea, I believe, in 2006. She reached the #1 ranking in WPBA in the past year, and I think she's currently ranked 3rd. She's also a pool room owner in New York, Skyline Billiards. She does lessons there and plays there a lot. With Thorsten Holman plays there a lot. I know they were doing some doubles action, doubles straight pool, mixed doubles straight pool. So that was kind of fun to watch. But yeah, she has also made an impact outside of traditional billiard circles. Another woman who, beautiful woman, but tenacious, a lot of drive to become a better pool player, to become the best pool player in the world. A lot of admirable qualities there. And a lot of connection to Jeanette from being in that, that New York pool group.
Absolutely. Well, I see her sort of on the whereby here. I at least see her pop up. I don't see her in there, but I see her name. Jennifer, are you with us?
I think I am. I feel like I'm also still in the holding area. Let me see what's going on here.
Go ahead and leave the green room, the APA marketing green room. You can leave that room, and maybe I'm sure she'll pop back in. But it's a good opportunity for us to plug the GoFundMe page, Mike. Again, the reason we're here tonight, encouraging our viewers, friends of Jeanette, fans to donate to the Jeanette Lee Legacy Fund. That is the GoFundMe page that's been set up to support her and her children's futures. And so obviously,
okay, hold on.
There we go. There she is. Oh, and she's gone.
It was far better than a black screen.
Yeah, that's interesting too. I didn't know Jennifer had opened a pool room in New York City. So it's amazing to see these pros go into kind of the business side of the sport.
Yeah. and you know, they help grow the sport, because you know, if anybody can drive players to want to be better, it's a pro who's showing you the tricks and showing you, you know, how hard you have to work to you know, become a good league player, or a small time tournament player, or work your way up to whatever it is. And I know Jennifer works, you know, awfully hard at that at her club.
Yeah. There we go. Let's see if third time's the charm. Do we have you there, Jennifer? Maybe, maybe not. Yeah, let's one more time. Do we have her? I tell you what, Steve, as we try to get things set up with Jennifer, let's run. Do you have the Allison video? Because you know, there was some video, Jeanette, talking about you know, her toughest opponents and that kind of thing, and you know, I'll let her speak for herself in terms of who her toughest opponent was on the table.
Well, I've played a lot of champions, male and female, but if we're going to talk specifically female, definitely Allison Fisher. She's awesome. She's consistent. She has heart. She has good knowledge of the game. And I believe that she's also like me in that her attitude is very much as a student. And so I give her a lot of respect. I hate her. But aside from that, we get along really well.
All right, so we're back, and obviously we've worked through our technical issues. We've got Jennifer Beretta here, and Mike. Jennifer, you missed Mike's nice long like introduction of all of your accomplishments, which are quite amazing. But I'll let him go ahead and take over the interview from here.
Well, you know, one of the things that I was going to ask you about, Jennifer, was, you know, you were kind of a late bloomer as far as the Pro Tour.
Yeah.
And Jeanette was already, you know, a well-established star. You're both from New York.
Mm-hmm.
What do you remember about her as you were, you know, becoming a player in New York? Was her name everywhere? Was her face everywhere?
I mean, she was a legend. She had already left New York by the time I started playing. I think she was in Indianapolis. And I'm pretty sure the first time I met her, there was a tournament at Amsterdam Billiards, and I was a really new player. I'd only been playing maybe 2 years, something like that. But we had a mutual friend, Stu Matana, who's my mentor, and was always very good friends with Jeanette. And he introduced me. And just from the moment we met, we clicked. And, you know, she was always just really good to me and made sure that when I came on tour, I felt welcome. And, you know, there were a lot of people who didn't like me. You know, I did some magazines and I wasn't like a player yet. So people just, they don't like you for the hat. And she always made me feel welcome and, you know, made it a little bit more comfortable.
Do you think she saw a little bit of herself in you as far as what she was up against coming onto the tour?
Probably, yeah. And actually what's funny is, like, I think it was in that first meeting, she was in New York for the tournament, but she also was doing an article for FHM, and she's the one that introduced me to the, you know, I guess, I don't know if he was the editor, I don't know what he was, but then they decided to do that photo spread, the first one that I did. So she actually got that for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Competitively, do you remember the first time you played her?
I don't remember the first time I played her. Yeah, I don't.
You know, admiring someone like that who had taken you under her wing and made you feel comfortable at the beginning, did it make it difficult when you played her to really, you know, zero in focus wise to try to beat her brains in?
No, I mean, because she always made me feel so comfortable. And, you know, I never had that, like, I mean, I'm competitive when I play. I don't really have that, like, I want to kill people thing. I really, when I play, I just want to play the best pool I can. So maybe that's why it's not so memorable, you know.
Yeah.
I know I've had wins and I've had losses with her, but you know, I don't remember the first time.
Yeah. Yeah. What kind of impact has she had on you, you know, as a player and away from the table? Is she giving you advice? Is she?
Well, the thing, it's funny because she has her persona and people see the, you know, pictures, and there's like that hard image, and Jeanette in real life couldn't be anything like, she's so much different than that. You know, she's such a warm and caring person and goes out of her way for people. I remember I went out to her house in Indianapolis for like a week, and we played and everything. And I just remember she barely had any time, and she would find time to, you know, she had like these kids with scoliosis, and she went and she met with them, and, you know, they were so excited, and it was such a, she was so limited on time, but she still found the time for that, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And on top of that, all the things she was doing for me, like she brought me out there to like practice and help me with my game. And, you know, I can't say enough good things about her as a person. You know, she really is a great person.
Yeah, that's great.
Jennifer, but before we let you go tonight, you know, we've asked each of our guests to, you know, to kind of just take a moment to speak directly to Jeanette. You know, we anticipate if she's not watching right now, that she certainly will when she's able. What would you like to say to Jeanette?
Well, I would say that, you know, after everything that she's been through, this is like the last thing that she needs, and it's the last thing that she deserves. But if there's anyone who can fight it and win, it's Jeanette. She's got that, you know, fiery competitive spirit, and the same way she plays pool, she never gives up, never quits, no quit in her. So
that's awesome.
You know.
Well, thank you again for taking the time to join us. I'm sure it means a lot to Jeanette as well, to have, you know, a good friend of hers and somebody that's kind of followed in her footsteps come in and talk so many nice things about her. So thank you very much.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Jen.
Love you, Jeanette.
Mike, it's interesting what she said. You know, I can remember before we signed Jeanette, you know, in 2009 to her sponsorship with APA, you know, there was this belief out there that, you know, she was tough to work with, right? I mean, we had been led to believe that she just, you know, you better get everything in the contract to make sure she does this and that because she's reached this level, and nothing could have been further from the truth. I mean, she was ready to do whatever you asked. And she actually told me when we first signed it, she said, look, my whole philosophy is under promise, over deliver. And, you know, she, again, she's always giving with her time, whether it's to a young Jennifer Beretta who's coming up, and Jeanette sees that, you know, she's running into some of the same things that she ran into when she gets on the tour, whether it's a fan asking for an autograph. I can remember numerous pool parties. Jeanette does not like to have to tell people no with autographs. She does not like to have to tell them no with photos. So you've got a guy like me in the background who has to do it, right? And every time, and the one of the funniest stories is, you know, each time we have these pool parties in Vegas, and any of our members that are tuning in can attest to this, you know, we actually have to bring in like a group of security guards, right? And we do this whole choreographed thing where they surround Jeanette, and we all start moving at the same time to get her from the pool party where she's been signing and taking these photos all the way back into the elevator up to her room. So, no, you know, just safely. But inevitably, you know, what would happen is we'd start moving this group through all these people. Jeanette would break ranks and then just run and jump right in the pool, fully clothed. Didn't matter what she had on. She didn't care. And the fans loved it, right? And meanwhile, you know, I'm pulling my hair out. Like, how are we going to get her out of the pool and get her up to the room? She didn't care, because Jeanette was always all about the fans and giving people what they wanted. And that, you know, so when I hear these stories, it just takes me back to all of these different moments that I've had with her. And, you know, it's so genuine. Everything you're hearing tonight is so genuine. And I think our next guest, you know, has a lot of things in common with Jeanette. You know, he's one of those types of players that has transcended beyond the pool world. In fact, I would say very similar to Jeanette in terms of kind of the mainstream. Now, he's done it more through the internet and some popularity there, obviously a little bit different in terms of specialty. But of course, I'm talking about Florian Kohler, Venom, as he's better known throughout his viral videos. But, you know, it's interesting, the parallels between the two of them. And as we bring him in, you know, I'll let him speak to that. But, you know, I got to imagine a young Florian Kohler, you know, when he's back in France, kind of starting to get a feel for pool, he'll tell you the story, but he basically goes on YouTube and he starts searching videos, right? And he ends up finding a lot of trick shot videos because that was what happened to be out there, and he starts replicating these shots. But I got to imagine, and again, when he joins us, he'll kind of speak to this, but at some point, with as much coverage as she had, throughout the world, I got to guess that at some point he also was able to be introduced to the Black Widow in some regard.
Yeah, he's an amazing guy, Florian. I mean, he's another guy who's just understood how to market and how to make yourself into that global star. It's just an understanding of how to reach people and how to engage with them, and to get 1 billion video views. I mean, that's a big number. That's a pretty big number in anybody's book. And he got that plaque for topping 1 million subscribers on his YouTube channel. I mean,
that was unbelievable when I saw that too. Yeah. I'd never seen one of those before, and he showed me that thing. And he made Billiards Digest this year, did he not? Wasn't he on
cover of Billiards Digest this year? Yeah, I mean, you got to
cover of Billiards Digest. That's when you've made it. When you make the cover of Billiards Digest, you've made it.
I'll never be on the cover of Billiards Digest.
Yeah. It's my understanding he was in the green room trying to help with some technicals, so I'm not sure what the holdup is, but I'm sure he will join us momentarily. But while we wait for Florian to jump in here, I do want to mention once again the GoFundMe page, Jeanette Lee Legacy Fund. In fact, I'll take a quick look and see how we're doing on that count. We started at a little over 154,000 when we started tonight, Mike. We're over 158,000, which is fantastic. Again, keep it going, folks, if you can, if you're able to donate. There's the man. Look at those. Look at the world records behind him. The Guinness World Records all set up. What's up, Florian?
I'm doing good. How are you guys?
We're doing great. We're just, as we sit here and talk, Florian, we've had a number of different guests tonight kind of talking about Jeanette Lee, obviously, and kind of the impact that they kind of have had on their career, even if not directly, but just kind of having seen what she has accomplished and trying to, follow that same kind of path. And I was just telling Mike and the viewers that, there's a lot of similarities between the two of you guys. I mean, obviously, you guys have both worked with APA for the better part of the last decade, and I know you guys have crossed paths at our events and the pool parties and things like that. But I'm curious, going back to your beginnings in France, and I know you've documented the stories of getting online and seeing lots of videos of the trick shot guys. But I'm curious, at any point, where did you first become aware of the Black Widow?
That's obviously in Europe, it's a little bit of a different story as far as people, that really transcended the market, the pool industry. And obviously, the Black Widow, I think I knew about Black Widow, the brand, before even Jeanette in person, so it was more of a branding, marketing, I would say, that I knew about it as, this thing, the Black Widow thing. And then I realized who actually she was. So I don't think it really, right away, I really understood what it was. So that's how big really Jeanette was and overseas, and that's definitely a good model to follow. I'll tell you that.
Yeah. What kind of interaction have you guys had, during the APA events? I mean, I know you guys actually have both become league operators, which is another parallel between the two of you guys. What kind of interaction have you guys enjoyed?
Well, that's interesting because actually we crossed paths a lot. I'll say literally, like, she'll come in the room, I'll exit, or I'll come in the room, she'll leave. So it's actually, we've kind of just more crossed than anything. And to be quite honest, it's I think I came a little later to her, so rather compared to Eva, who's knew Jeanette for many years, I'm fairly recent, I'll say. But it's been interesting, and we kind of piggybacked on each other crowds and exchanged a few words after the tournament, after the shows at the Westgate, for example. We've had I was trying to get her crowd back when I started my show, and vice versa. So it's very interesting, but it's been very good relation as far as I know. It was that very cordial relationship, and I think it's great to see how many people she was able to interact with during the Westgate Championships every time.
You do a lot of your focus is you were talking about marketing and developing of a brand. What do you know about or admire about how she built her brand, and how do you tie that into what you try to do?
Well, I think it comes back to what I mentioned first. Basically, when I think your brand goes past your own name or your character, I think it just means everything, right? It means that you're able to get your name so high up that people don't even see you as just a person, but like as something more.
Right.
And I think this is exactly what I'm aiming for. I mean, let's be honest, in the pool industry, they had very few people they were able to transcend those borders. And obviously we see Jeanette, and she's definitely one of the forefront. I mean, before Jeanette, we had a few of the, I'll say, the old timers, right? Like the Steve Mizrak and all those guys. They really were able to get their name out. But since then, it's been Jeanette, really. So
yeah, that's again, it's pretty amazing. And I'm curious, Florian, like, there is a special quality that it takes to do what a Miz did, or what a Black Widow has done, or what a Florian Kohler has done. What is that special, intangible? I mean, is it really just knowing how to build a brand and to market yourself, or is it, does there have to be something else there? What is the common trait between all of you guys that allows you to jump from pool to, well beyond to where I go to conferences and I tell people I'm in pool and they say, hey, do you know the guy that does all the crazy stuff on the table, or do you know the lady in the leather pants? I mean, what is that special trait that you guys all share?
I think it's just hard work. I think, one of the biggest issue that most professional pool players at the moment they focus so much on their game, on their break, on this and that. They forget the marketing aspect, and it's just a part of the work. So you're going to have to spend hours on it. And if you don't, then you'll be known, whatever, but you're never going to be able to really transcend that. And I think it's just, you just got to be a workaholic, to be quite honest, I mean. And I think that's the trait that I've seen in all the people that have succeeded in the industry, that it just never stops. And for me, I know it's exactly what it is. I mean, in between the league, the trick shots, the marketing online, I mean, I just never stopped. I wake up, I get to work, I go to bed, I work. I don't even have TV anymore at house. No time.
Florian, but I know you're a busy guy. I know you got the league and everything going on back home. But before we let you run tonight, what would you like to say to Jeanette from one, viral video or one transcending star to another?
Well, obviously, to me, Jeanette has been, you've always been a model. We are addressing that to Jeanette, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm just so, okay. So, but yeah, Jeanette's, you've always been a model to me as far as, model work. And I really admire the work ethics and the way you've been able to transcend everything. And I know that how well she did in her career and how hard she worked, she will be able to do the same, try to fight this cancer. And I think she can beat it.
Awesome. Well, Florian, we certainly appreciate you taking a few minutes of your time and talking to us. I know Jeanette appreciates it as well. And hopefully we'll be seeing you again face-to-face soon. The world is starting to open back up, and hopefully August.
I am crossing my fingers, to be quite honest. It's looking much better in Las Vegas right now. I think stuff is starting to reopen. The guidelines are loosened up a little bit. Bars and pools are in general doing much better. And I know we have, for example, NASCAR here in a couple of weeks, and I think they're having 16,000 people. So it's looking good for stuff in Vegas. So I wouldn't be surprised if the few league events are going to start rolling in just as fine.
Awesome. Appreciate you joining us, buddy. It's good to see you as always, and we will talk very soon, I'm sure.
A pleasure, guys. Yeah.
Take care, Florian.
All right. So, Mike, we as we've kind of gone through the evening, we really started with kind of the beginning of Jeanette's career and talking about how she kind of burst onto the scene. And we started talking about as she kind of, her brand grew, the business side of things started to grow. And, we talked to her agent and we talked to some of the big sponsors and that kind of thing. And now we've kind of passed into kind of the conversation of inspiration. We talked to Jennifer Beretta. We've talked to Florian. And our next guest is the youngest of the guests that we'll have tonight, two-time Mosconi winner, a young Tyler Steyer, and he's here to kind of talk about. I'll let you introduce him, but I know he's going to talk about the influence a person like Jeanette's had on a young up-and-coming player.
Yeah, he's 26 years old. He's still young. Got a great career ahead of him. twice Mosconi Cup winner, as you said, and 2019 Kremlin Cup winner in Russia as well. And a guy who thinks beyond just how to break better. He does have a good perception of what you want to be, beyond just a good player, how you want to represent yourself. He's always, you don't have to worry about him being out of line. I mean, he's just a good solid kid, and
very marketable kind of guy. We've talked a lot about marketable people, and for players that are watching this, keeping a good reputation, keeping it clean, being somebody that a brand can put your name on, and that's a big deal. And he certainly has that kind of potential, I think, especially as we saw him excel, particularly in that first Mosconi Cup. I'll never forget that. I'll never forget Team USA day one being down 2 matches, and he's going head to head. I think it was with Niels. Right. I think he was down 2 games in that match, and just single-handedly really turned around that day for Team USA, as far as I was concerned, and changed the fate of what may have just been yet another kind of lopsided loss. And so it was good to see him burst on the scene. It looks like he's having maybe some technical.
Can you guys hear me, Jason?
We can hear you, Tyler. We can hear you. We can't see you, but we can hear you.
Yeah, well, first off, thanks for the compliments. I appreciate that. But
no problem.
The camera was working just fine in the side room, in the green room, but I can't get it to work here for some reason. Okay. Sounds good.
For all of our, there we go.
There
he is. Look at him.
There he is.
Young
How you doing,
Tyler
buddy?
Steyer.
So, I mean, hard
Okay,
working.
hang on. One second, Mike. Becky, I can still hear you for some reason.
Yeah, so the way, for the folks at home that are watching, one of the ways that we've done this tonight is we set up a virtual green room where we've had our guests kind of waiting, and then we bring them into a different whereby room. So it's like going from Zoom call to Zoom call, and sometimes if you don't leave the one Zoom call, it creates problems in the next Zoom call. So I imagine Tyler will come back here momentarily and join us. But while we do that, again, we can kind of remind folks about the GoFundMe page, the Jeanette Lee Legacy Fund, which has been climbing steadily throughout the evening. We're now at, let's take a quick look at it, little over 158,000. So that's great. And it keeps going. I know I've talked to a lot of different folks that are doing kind of their own event type fundraisers. I mean, we talked to Lori John tonight, and I know she had a group of players that kind of got together and donated some money. And so, whatever you can do locally is perfect. And here we go. There's Tyler. He's back with us.
There we go.
Got it. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
We're all dialed in. No problem. Thanks for joining us. We were talking about, young players and who you look at as models and who impacts and influences you as you're coming up as a player. What did you know about her game or about her brand or personality as you were growing up and just starting to take the game more seriously?
Well, even when I came into the game, like Jeanette she was an icon. Like, she is the face of pool. Like you guys have said multiple times already during this interview, that everybody asks if you know who the Black Widow is if you're involved with pool. That's the first thing that people ask. And there is no like him and then or her, and then you go like Willie Mosconi or Minnesota Fats. You get those 3 names a lot. None of the players that have won like world championships in the men's division or anything, but it's Jeanette Lee, right? And I remember the first time I saw her at Derby City, and she kind of just has this aura around her that other people just don't have. Just a confidence behind not just who she is as a person, her character, her game. She's funny and she knows it, so she's always playing jokes with people, and just a great personality altogether.
Yeah. What impact does a player like that have on a young kid, learning the game? Does it make you aspire to greater things? Does it make you practice harder? Does it make you play harder? Does it make you want to be a marketing genius? What goes through your mind when you meet someone like that and it all starts to become clearer to you?
Sure, all the above. It just makes you want to be a better person altogether, and just grow the sport as much as you can. Like, you see how just one person can impact the entire game. You're like, okay, how can I do this? you know, and she's just unbelievable. Like, I remember playing a little exhibition thing with her at Derby, kind of in like the room where the piano is, and the pool table's on the piano, you know, turning around the piano stand and everything, and just hundreds of people. Like Shane and Francisco be playing in the tournament room, and Jeanette Lee's doing an exhibition out there, and everybody's watching Jeanette. You know what I mean? It's just like she's incredible, and it's what she does. I don't know how she
Power
does
of
it,
the
but she
Black
does
Widow.
it.
It's the power of
Yeah,
the Black
that's
Widow.
right.
So I
Well,
saw some pictures, Tyler, that you had put on Facebook with her. Yeah, and I'm curious.
Something like that.
I'm curious, like what age this is that you meet her, and I'm assuming that's
So,
at Derby City.
yeah, this is 2011. This is the first time I went to Derby City. I guess I beat her in like a race or two, and she signed her glove and gave it to me. And then I have like a signed Black Widow 8-ball still from 2011. So, yeah, it's just, that was 10 years ago, right? I was 16 years old. And yeah, I remember it clear as day.
Yeah. Do you aspire to, learn from her in terms of marketing yourself outside of pool? I mean, I'm not saying maybe you want to be the next Black Widow, but what does she make you think as far as what you can do with your future?
She shows you what's possible. I guess it's just knowing how to do it. And I guess I really don't know what she did to get to the point where she was at, but like you guys have said, like just the way she is around big groups of people, she just markets herself. Right.
Yeah.
And she just has this personality to her that nobody else really has, and everybody gravitates towards her.
Yeah. Yeah. Have you ever played her?
Not in a serious competition. No,
Okay.
Never got to play her.
Yeah.
But I know Jerry Bryseth worked with her, and
Right.
I've worked with Jerry as well, and he did a good job. they both did, obviously.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, it's very cool to hear, especially from an up and coming young player that's had as much early success as you have, and to hear what kind of influence she's had on you personally. Tyler, before we let you go tonight, what would you like to say, to Jeanette, from you personally, in terms of what she's battling and kind of what you think about her?
Sure. Jeanette, you are absolutely incredible. You are an angel, not to just the pool world, but to the entire world as a whole. Just heal up as fast as you can. Keep your hopes up. If you need any support, the entire pool room's got you. The pool world's got you. And, lots of prayers coming your way, sweetheart.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Tyler. We appreciate you joining us tonight. And I know Jeanette appreciates it as well.
Yeah. Thanks, Tyler.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it.
Thanks a lot, guys. Appreciate
Very
it.
nice to you. Appreciate it.
Later.
So, Mike, we're starting to wind down. We do have one more guest, but I gotta say, these last few guests, and really especially with Tyler, because he's just such a young guy, and he's clean cut, up and comer, to hear, the inspiration that she's been for these guys is really amazing. And I know Jeanette takes that very seriously, and it's not just inspiration in terms of the what she does on the pool table. It's inspiration in terms of what she does as a marketer, or what she does as a mother. What she tries to inspire the Asian community. Tom George talked about, how important that is to her. There's so many facets to Jeanette, and in every single one of those, she takes a personal responsibility to lead and to encourage others. And I think it's really what makes her so special and so unique. I mean, that was one of the things we try to identify, what is that intangible. And I think that's it, is she feels this obligation, not just on the pool table or in the pool world, but in all aspects of her life.
Yeah. Florian mentioned it, he thought the common denominator was hard work. And that's certainly, one of the key ingredients, but it takes real heart. And that's what Jeanette has. It takes heart to understand what other people are going through. It takes heart to understand how you can help them. It takes heart to understand how you can inspire them. And so those are all the things that she's always worked on and always, excelled at and driven towards, is continuing to deliver these messages of inspiration, whether it's through play, whether it's through, just a phone call from her, or whether she sees you at a tournament, whatever. she just tries to find ways to lift people and keep them pushing on, and that's what drives her, is the desire to do that for other people. And it's once in a generation thing. You're lucky enough to meet someone like that.
Yeah. Well, and I hope we've been able to lift her a little bit too, because I know how much she has given to the pool community, and hopefully we can give a little bit back. So we have one more guest, and he has been the most patient of the guests. I'll let Mike introduce him, but it's Rob Johnson, the executive director of the Billiard Congress of America. You want to give him a more formal, welcoming
he's
introduction.
the CEO for the Billiard Congress of America. He came in 2006, I believe. I think 2007 was the first trade show he ran. And from coming up from outside the industry, coming from the motorsports business, he's able to come in with a completely different look and take a broader overall look at pool and see what we had. And I'm interested to know what his recollections were about Jeanette before he got into the industry and once he did. So hopefully he's in the queue and
popping in there shortly. He was also there on perhaps the biggest night of her career when she was inducted into the Hall of Fame. I'm sure that's one of the things that you'll talk to him about. But as Mike said, Rob Johnson is the executive director of the Billiard Congress of America, which is the industry's trade association. So he was there and he left again, but I'm sure hopefully he'll be right back.
The food's got to be really good in that green room.
That was the quickest.
People keep on ducking on us.
It was the quickest interview we've done tonight. That's a record. Hopefully he'll jump back on, but it is interesting. I had forgotten, Mike, about Rob's background in motorsports, and so certainly he's seen,
he's seen big names in marketing, and So his perspective on Jeanette, and I know that he's got some personal recollections of her, in other events that the BCA was part of, celebrity events, things like that, NFL charities, NBA charities, things of that nature. So. He'll have a good insight into what it means to him to come in an industry like this and see someone like Jeanette. And again, like you said before, as we're waiting, there's still time for people to get on board and help us push that number up on the GoFundMe, Jeanette Lee Legacy Fund.
We just passed 159,000. We just passed 159,000. So
it'd be great to hit 160 before we get off the air tonight. That
would be fantastic. And again, we're so grateful for those that have donated. And I know Jeanette is grateful. And obviously, we've had the video that we shared. One of the things that Jeanette had conveyed to Mike and I when we talked to her is, the outpouring of support was so significant. It was really hard for her to reach out to everybody individually. And I know that that's hard for her. So, again, we do appreciate all the support. There is Rob Johnson, executive director of the Billiard Congress of America. We see him. Is he hearing us?
You hear us, Rob? It's sign language time.
I don't know if he can see
sound. Sorry.
Well, we can hear you. I could hold up my questions. Is there anything he's missing, Steve?
I see it muting. Rob, are you there? Well, he's definitely there. He just can't hear it.
Yeah, he can.
Yeah, let's do that real quick. We do have a quick video, and it's a video from the actual Hall of Fame induction, I believe, 2013. Jeanette's very special night for her. She was inducted into the Billiard Hall of Fame. You'll see a number of her peers there, and obviously Rob and a lot of the industry there to award her with that special recognition. Barry Hearn was also Matchroom Sport inducted that same night. So go ahead and play that video if we've got it, Steve.
My friend, the Black Widow, Hall of Famer, Jeanette Lee.
This is so exciting. Take a picture, it's not black.
So you just get a kind of a momentary look at what that night was like for Jeanette. I got to tell you, Mike, and I wasn't necessarily going to tell this story, but since we got a moment, I will tell it. You know, that night in 2013, I actually went back and watched the video again because, you know, it's a career night for Jeanette, right? The peak of a career when you're introduced to the Hall of Fame. But during her induction speech, she made my night as well, because literally during the speech, not only does she mention APA, but she specifically mentions my name and proceeds to say, "I love you. You're great at marketing," or something to that effect. And I mean, I was just like, holy cow. I mean, this is the Black Widow in the middle of her Hall of Fame induction speech, you know, giving that kind of praise. And I, you know, I've thought about it a lot, you know, kind of after that and going back and watching it and how special it was. Jeanette did have a way of doing that for the people around her. You know, with the success that she was achieving, she always had a way of kind of bringing people along or letting them kind of experience it. So she didn't just want to celebrate herself. She wanted to make sure that it was a special thing for those that were closest to her. And, you know, it's something that I'll never forget, and a story that I'll be telling for a very long time. And I'm sure I'll hold on to that video for quite a while. But, you know, and I'm sure you've got some experiences like that with her as well.
Well, I can honestly say that she's never said she loved me in any video.
Yeah.
or in any speech, and probably not, you know, in an email or a text. But
yeah, I mean, I was floored. I was literally floored. And you know, I'm there with the owner of my company, Terry Bell. I'm there with my boss at the time, Renee Lyle. And you know, she basically says, "You guys are great at marketing. I love you, Jason Bowman." And I thought, wow. I mean, I'm pretty sure I started texting my wife, like, Jeanette just, you know. And my wife's like, "Why is Jeanette saying she loves you?" And I said, "It's not like that. It's not like that." But, you know, it really was, you know, we joke about it, but something that again, I won't soon forget, and certainly made, you know, her special night even, you know, was special for me and a career highlight for me personally. So something I'm very grateful for. I don't know, Mike. I think Rob we might have lost him. I don't know if we're going to get Rob back.
No, that can't be true.
We can get him another minute here. In fact, Steve, I think we've got a video where Jeanette has some comments about Efren Reyes. Do you have that? Let's show that video. We'll see if we get Rob back in here, and if not, we'll kind of close off the night and let everybody go. So let's run that video real quick.
Easily my favorite player to watch was Efren Reyes. I mean, I haven't seen him play lately, but he's the only person that I know that makes the champions drop. And I believe that it's because he has so many different skills. It's not just in pool or one pocket or bank pool, but he plays 3-cushion billiards. I'm sure he plays snooker. Very well-rounded, but he does things that we don't even think of. And even if we thought of it, we wouldn't dare to shoot it in a tournament under the gun. But he does, and he makes it look easy. And I just think that he's a beautiful, beautiful player.
All right. So it's, you know, it's really interesting when you hear Jeanette talk about, you know, we've heard her talk about one of her toughest opponents, or her toughest opponent on the table, Allison Fisher. And obviously now you hear her talking about Efren Reyes, which is, you know, a pretty good player to look up to, right? Efren Reyes, or shall I say Cesar Morales. And that's that'll be a story for another time. If you don't know that story, we'll have to tell that on another day. But it is very cool to hear, you know, somebody like that and the praise they have for others in the industry. So here is Rob. I don't know if Rob is hearing us.
I got you guys. Sorry about that.
He's hearing us. Woohoo!
I can't remember what I was going to ask you now.
Yeah, exactly. The video doesn't work, but the phone does.
Great to have you here. Thanks for joining us. And
good to see you, Rob.
With it.
Appreciate you guys. Yeah, sorry about the technical difficulties. That was crazy.
No, that happens. You know, I was mentioning before you came on about how you had come to billiards from the motorsports industry, and there's certainly, you know, a lot of heroes and big names in motorsports, and there's certainly people who know a lot about branding and marketing. You know, what did you know about Jeanette before you came into the industry, and what kind of analogies can you make to where you were at in motorsports? What did you see similarly?
It's a great question. I've said it before that, when I met with the recruiter and I interviewed for the job, one of the first things I did is I went and did some mystery shopping. And so I went to one of the old Brunswick stores and I looked around and tried to get up to speed. But then I went in, and the first interview I had was 3 board members and the recruiter. And, the first question he asked was, what do you know about billiards, or what do you know about the industry? And truly the one name I knew was the Black Widow. And I didn't even know Jeanette's name. I just knew the Black Widow. And so I could, name drop a couple of the brands that I learned real quickly. But the fact was I knew Jeanette. And, to take that story forward, what I talked a lot about with the players and with a lot of people was my background in motorsports. If, we needed Jeff Gordon at 4 a.m. to do a radio call-in or do a TV appearance anywhere, he would do that for his sponsors, and because he knew it was to promote the sport. And I saw the same thing from Jeanette, and I continue to see it every time. We would ask, some type of interview. Shane and I have anybody international or any type of national media or a TV station or that type of thing. We always knew we could count on Jeanette, and she got it. She got the bigger picture that it was about promoting the sport and promoting, everything that she did would help the sport, and to grow the sport would help everybody. And I truly believe she got it, and she continues to get as much as anybody.
Speaking to that, and I know you weren't at this meeting, but she spoke on behalf of the sport to the USOC when the BCA was petitioning for membership into USOC. And, I don't know that anybody in the room who was acting on behalf of the USOC thought billiards had much of a chance of anything, but her presence there really had an impact. What do you remember hearing about that? And I know you've got a letter from the USOC members at that time. What did they say about Jeanette?
No, it's a great question. So, in doing some research in 2003, the BCA had a chance to go in front of the USOC, and the idea was to try to get it was called Affiliated Sports Organization. And that was the first step that the BCA was looking to achieve that recognition from the United States Olympic Committee. And so to do that, they wanted somebody that could speak on behalf of pool and to show that it was a sport and not just a game. And so they chose Jeanette. And so in looking at the files and talking with you, I found a great letter that basically said she mesmerized the room. And she was the one person that was chosen to do this presentation and to really paint the picture for the USOC of what it was like to play the game and how technical it was, and how, the dedication, the commitment, and that you were a true athlete to be able to play the game. And, so it was really neat for me to see the file and see what she did and how successful she was, and talking to the USOC and seeing the letters back from the USOC of saying what an amazing job she did, explaining the game.
Yeah, I know. I talked to a couple people who were in that room, and they said that she was challenged that they like sports where people have to sweat, and I think she took great umbrage to the thought that she could play a whole day's worth of matches and have the mental and physical strain that you have to win a pool match, and for them to think that she just walks out there smelling like a daisy. So, typical of her, she did get it, and she knew how to deliver that message.
She sure did.
She also worked a number of charity events, that BCA was involved in, NBA players charity events or Super Bowl events or NBA All-Star Game events. She was, in a lot of those events, she was the biggest star in the room, wasn't she?
Yeah, and I think, one of the great stories that we have is it was 2008. So Alonzo Mourning and Magic Johnson had a event they did. It was Alonzo Mourning's charity, and it was part of the NBA All-Star Game. And so they wanted to do a tournament, and we invited a bunch of players, and Jeanette was obviously somebody that we asked to come, and she did it, and none of them got paid, and she came down to do the event. And the story that I always tell is, picture Magic Johnson, Alonzo Mourning, but picture Michael Jordan and Dr. J and Reggie Bush at the time, and then you had like a ludicrous rap star. And so you walk into this room and everybody's, staring at everybody. It's a big deal. Well, there's a table set up for Jeanette to do trick shots. And there was a line of Michael Jordan and Dr. J and Magic Johnson in line to actually do a trick shot with Jeanette Lee. And she was, if not the biggest name, she was one of the biggest names in that room. And again, it was amazing for me to watch, just watch her put on a show and how charismatic she was. And, they knew exactly who she was. We didn't have to explain it. And Dr. J showed up with his cue, and he literally came in the room looking for, the Black Widow, and just such a great ambassador for the sport. It's an event like that. It was amazing for me to see.
Yeah. Yeah. As, someone who's overseeing a good part of the industry and trying to help grow the sport as well. What do we need for other players and industry members to learn from Jeanette to help, to find that next generation of people who are going to help drive our sport?
She's always there. It was not about the money. If we had the World Games, as can you play in the World Games? It doesn't pay you a penny. You probably have to go out of pocket to play in it, but you represent your country, and it's a way to get publicity for the sport. And she was the first to raise her hand. And we need people like that understand that, it's about promoting the game and getting more eyeballs on this sport and seeing the bigger picture. And if it's doing an autograph session, if it's doing a media interview, if it's doing a promotion, whatever it takes to continue to grow this game and just expose it to more people, that's what it's going to take. And she got that. And that's where I always compare it to the motorsports, is that, the people that got the bigger picture and understood that it wasn't just about promoting them, but promoting whether it was the race or themselves, again, with Jeanette promoting the game. There's a bigger picture there. And we need athletes to continue to do that. And like the Moscone Cup, I've seen the players really start to do that. And I think that's such a positive to see that they see the bigger picture and they're learning the bigger picture. And that will help, because there's an audience out there that hasn't been exposed to the sport, that when they do, they'll fall in love with it. And, she does such a great job with that. And she sets a great example for it. And I think the players at the time that played with her, they all realized that she helped make them a lot of money.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
Hey, Rob, one last question before we let you go. Again, we've had all of our guests do this, and at some point, if Jeanette's not tuning in tonight, I anticipate she will be, to take a look at what all the nice things that we had to say. And so I'm curious, what would you say, directly to Jeanette?
Oh, that's a great question. I saw that what you guys did. First of all, thank you two for doing this and all the work that went into this from everybody. And I saw, on your Facebook post, that her line of the Jimmy Valvano, never give up. And it's such a poetic quote. And I think it's perfect. I think it's amazing that she said that. So number one is never give up. And number two, I know Jeanette has a strong faith. And so she's going to go through some tough times through this. And I hope she relies on her faith and her family relies on their faith. And, we're praying for her. And I've seen the comments in the Facebook chat tonight. And I know there's a lot of people that are praying for her and sending her good thoughts. And that's what I would tell her, just to look back on that. And I hope she sees all the positive messages, whether they're verbal or in the chat box, and continues to rely on her faith and never give up. And good things will happen.
Great.
Awesome. Thank you, Rob.
Thank you for taking the time. Appreciate it very much.
I appreciate you guys doing this. Like I said, and I hope people continue to contribute.
Me too.
Thanks again.
Take care.
All right, folks. Well, that just about wraps us up on the evening. And Mike, what a special evening it's been. I mean, the few technical hiccups aside, a lot of gratitude that we have for all of our guests tonight. Lori John Jones, Greg Hunt, Tom George, Johnny Archer. Yeah, Lori John Hassan. I'm sorry, Lori John. Johnny Archer, Nick Varner, Ava Lawrence, Florian, Tyler, Jennifer Beretta, Rob Johnson, Mike Demata. I'm forgetting somebody in there, I'm sure. What's that? Tom George, our agent, of course. And of course, Mike, thanks to you for helping to bring all of these folks together to do this tonight. This was all about Jeanette tonight, and, trying to give back a little bit of what she's given us all over the years, and just letting her know that we really do love her, and we're fighting for her, we're rooting for her. And the good thing is we've talked a lot about the GoFundMe page tonight. We are very close to $160,000 in there now, which is great. I think we were somewhere around 154 when we started. So
counting it as over 160 because Greg Hunt's 2,500 is not in there yet.
There you go. So we're going to say we got it over 160 for sure.
And thanks everybody for tuning in and donating to the fund. It was just fun to see these, the number go up every couple of minutes, people jumping in. It just goes to show the impact that Jeanette has had on the game and the people in the game and the people around the game and the people outside of the game over the course of her career. And it just shows too, again, I'll say it, how tight knit the billiard industry and the billiard sport is, and the players as a group. This is all about everybody, and that's what Jeanette always made it about. It was always about the game. It was, she wanted to create a brand and market that, but it was always about making the game bigger and the game better and making her better in that game. So this is all just kind of a full circle celebration, and appreciate your pulling all this together, because it was, this is 2 hours and 45 minutes that just flew by, and I had so much fun. And I too thank everybody who joined in tonight and waited for their chance to get in there and talk about Jeanette a little bit. And I think she's going to be blown away when she sees, what this evening was all about.
Yeah, and I got to make sure I thank our folks behind the scenes, my man at the controls, Steve Alejandro in the background, making all this work, and Becky Johnston keeping all of our guests occupied in the green room until it was their turn. They've all been very patient tonight. So it's been a fun night, folks. We do want to leave you tonight with one final word from Jeanette, and it's actually an interview that she did back in 2017. We mentioned the 50th anniversary of the Hall of Fame, and all of those players were there that night, and they did some interviews. But in this particular soundbite, she touches on how she's managed to overcome some of the health challenges that she's had over the years. And, obviously this was shot a few years ago, but I do believe it offers some insight into how she will fight this next battle with cancer. And so as we sign off, I'll remind you one more time, the GoFundMe page, the Jeanette Lee Legacy Fund, you can contribute, you can help Jeanette out. And otherwise, we are going to leave you with this last video clip of the one and only Black Widow, Jeanette Lee.
A lot of people ask me how I play through the pain and what makes me so strong. And I think strength is not something that you just have. It's something that you develop over time. And if you keep your eye on the goal, excuses just don't happen. I have a lot of pain. I live with pain daily, every morning, every night, every minute. And it's just something that's kind of like, it's just a part of me. And sometimes I literally, if I literally cannot bend, or I recently also got diagnosed with fibromyalgia, so the pain in my neck and shoulders have increased on top of all the other conditions that I have. And so I do what I can. I rest more often, and I make sure that when I play, I put quality behind the hours that I put in. And I really believe that it's just a normal thing. Everyone has something that they're dealing with, whether it's financial, emotional, physical, or it's happening to someone they love and it's on their mind and on their heart. And so when you get to the table, it's my little vacation to just put all of that away and just make this ball. And I feel like that, when you go through all that pain and you win, it's a feeling that most people will never feel. And so it's just wanting that. And sometimes if I'm not playing a lot and I get down to shoot a ball, or I'm in a match, and even if I'm behind or whatever, I just feel like tonight when I go to bed, I don't want my stomach churning. I don't want to regret choking. I want to be able to get a good night's sleep. And that means leaving it all out there and just going for it and taking it. And that drive really helps me through getting through any match, because the pain is always there. It just doesn't go away from me.
Impressive.
I'm really happy with how it all came together, how it all went. I mean, again, we've never done anything like this, but